Good evening, everybody. This is the board's budget session, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a little bigger crowd than we had last night for the board session. Always nice to see people. It's going to be a very simple agenda tonight. We're with one exception. The agenda will be the board will do its discussion on the budget with Ann. Then we will have comments from the audience. We'll take a short break, and then we'll have questions and answers. The questions have to be budget questions. They can't, pertaining to this budget. That's what we'll be entertaining. You'll ask the question. We will give you the answer. It's not going to be a discussion, and certainly not going to be a debate over the answer. So that's how we will proceed tonight. The exception. We're going to have one resident who has another meeting to go to, and I'm going to let him make his comment before we start here. Vic, you want to come up?
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Can somebody help him with the... We'll raise that. We'll raise that. Yeah. We're going to raise that for you, Vic.
Point that microphone by your mouth.
I would think.
That's what I'm doing this for.
Better than my ear.
Yes.
You tell me when to stop.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. Can you hear me all right? Testing.
Is
Test.
that good for you?
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, a little bit
That'll
more.
help you a little more.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate this. So, just real quickly, this pertains to myself, to, citizens on our street, and I'm sure others too. We had a couple of major potholes, okay? This is Island Boulevard off of East River. Is about 300 feet in. About 300 feet in.
No, that's fine, but this is for budget.
But it's related to budget because of the nature of it. As had been the case for a long time, in terms of asking for help with this, our township went to Wayne County to ask them, for help to get this repaired, these potholes, okay? And it came close, I must say. They were deep enough and big enough that I came close to damaging our CRV, almost a brand new one. And other people have said similar things. Anyway, the county is notoriously slow in responding. Okay, you know that. And we recently, fairly recently, we passed the millage for roads here, which I was very happy, thankful for. And I guess I assumed, and I shouldn't have, I assumed that there would be some money within that to do some of these repairs as they come up as they're needed, as far as a deep pothole or what have you. At least that seemed logical. I don't know if that's exactly how the proposal was structured. I honestly don't know. I should have taken the time, but life gets too busy, so maybe that part is on me. But I was just wondering if there is some way to funnel that money, to getting repairs like this done, which they are, believe me, I'm not calling wolf here or something, it was a real problem.
Vic, you're really getting into an issue that isn't budget.
Okay.
Okay,
no,
and
but the money part.
I would be glad to call you tomorrow and discuss this with you.
Okay.
And possibly we might be able to take a look at it, see if we can do something about it.
Right.
It's on Stout.
It's on Island Boulevard?
Boulevard.
Yeah, and where the money comes in, can the money come from the millage, which we okayed, to take care of these kinds of needs? Believe me, they're
the millage was to repave and fix our roads. So
Right.
we will talk about that. But
Okay.
I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Very good. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you all.
Enjoy your other meeting.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it'll be so enjoyable, but thank you.
Yes. All right. That was our one exception. Thank you, Vic. So, Ann, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Alrighty. Good evening. So before the board, I just wanted to present them budget books. They are divided into two sections. One, the first part of it is the draft budget that was prepared with lots of input from managers. They've been working on it. So it is with a lot of input from the managers, and we can go through those budgets. And also in the back of the book, which becomes pretty informational, is trends. So also provided the board with trends of 2019-20 actual, 2020-21 actual, 21-22, the 22-23 budget of last year.
Where in the back of the?
It's in the back section.
There was
Behind the orange sheet.
Behind the
Yes.
orange.
So these are trends of every fund that we're gonna go over. As we know with budgets, a lot of it is based on trend history. We can only project the future, but the trends become very valuable tool when we go to look at the budgets with the managers. So if you want to keep those out kind of separate, and we can talk about those and understand why some of the numbers had changed and why they changed, that is a great tool. But in the budgets that I handed out, we do have last year's budgets and this year's budgets there, so we can compare the two differences. As we start out the budget, I'm just going to go through pages and go over some major changes or just explain changes and go through the different variables of the budgets.
I'm sorry, there's no like PowerPoint or electronic presentation?
No.
So how will the public participate in the budget process?
Well, they're going to listen to it, I would assume, and I mean,
That's kind of ridiculous, that we're a township spending millions of dollars and we didn't prepare a PowerPoint to share with anybody?
you want a PowerPoint of the, I just, this is the way I've done it in the past. I don't know why it's so different after 27 years, but
Well, because it's 2023 and 27 years ago, there maybe wasn't PowerPoints and overheads.
well, page one. As required by law, we're required to issue the tax statement, the estimate of the taxes, because the budget is derived from the tax estimate. So in your book is that, and we'll be able to see how all the taxes for the different funds were put together. So that's page one. So we have the estimated tax value from the 22 till 23. So our actual taxable value for 2022 was $686,439,173, and our taxable value that we're preparing this budget based upon is $730 million is what the estimate value is. So we did have a very nice increase due to the inflation rate, which was subject to 5%. So we can see later how that did help us because it did go up. Inflation last year for this area was 8%, and so the taxes went up due to the inflation factor. Page two, we have basically some history and wages for the last 20 years. It's just a comparison. No real, when we're creating this budget, we realize that we're 90% people. That reflects this budget, and the 22, 23, 24 increases that were reflected in this budget were based on projections, non-union of 2.5%, union of 0.25%, and the POAM, which was actual based on contract negotiations of 3%. So that's what is included within this budget. If you look in the average inflation, so over that 20-year period, Raises for the non-union is at 1.64%, the union is at 1.9%, and the POAM is at 1.86%. So total CPI over that same period is an average of 2.19%. So the actual raises given to employees over the period, I'm not saying there haven't been adjustments, but in totality was less than the CPI has been. Page 3, as we know, our biggest expenses are our MERS pension and our health care. If we look at page 3, that is the actual amounts that were spent in those years, so 20, 21, 22, and to date in 23. As of 22, we had an unfunded pension liability of $14,806,000, and we were 64.69% funded. This year we are budgeting our MERS to be $1,785,531 across the board. With MERS, we always know that this is a number that we're always chasing. So every year it's going to fluctuate based on the actuarial values. We're going to experience the same things we do with MERS. It's the same thing we experience in our own households. In 2021, our net investment in MERS was $3.4 million. If we look at it today, our net investment is negative $2.8 million. So we can see that this number fluctuates not minimally, but gratefully, depending on the year, just like our own finances do. Page 4. So page 4 is how I derive what's to be budgeted for our MERS pension. I get this through the actuary. I don't come up with these numbers, the actuary does. They give me these numbers. So if you look at page 4 in the middle of the page, last year our contribution requirement was $1.9 million, a little over $1.9 million. This year, it's down to $1.7 million. So actually, our required contribution has actually went down almost $200,000. So again, we always expect it to go up. They actually made it come down. So pension is something very, very difficult to get a track on. So we are definitely doing stuff in the right direction, but it fluctuates greatly every year. When we look at the next page, page 5 is healthcare. The budget for healthcare. Healthcare is a little different to compare apples to apples. It's based on the content of the employees. Do we have single employees? Do we have married employees? Do they have kids? Do they not have kids? Are they retired? So the complement of the group will change retirement more than just a percentage because we do follow the state hard cap. So the township cannot pay more than 3% for healthcare. So it's based on the hard cap, but obviously who we hire and the changes that will affect healthcare. As of the same amount, 22, we had an unfunded liability of like a $12.6 million. We were 2.75% funded. So we did incorporate a trust to help fund this. We are not required to fund into that trust, but we have been. So our total budgeted healthcare for this year is a little over $1.5 million. Obviously, those are big numbers, and that what derives a lot of our budget. And page 6, 7, 8, 9 are our budget. It will be what will be adopted by the board. Right now, that is in draft format, obviously, until we go through the budget. We are not required to, by law, to adopt a line budget. We are required to adopt a cost center budget, and that's what we do every year. So the detail you have is for our working papers, and that is not required to be adopted. So page 10, I'm just going to go in order of funds. Page 10 is our general fund. It's our most discretionary fund. We are presenting a balanced budget for general fund. We are not using COVID dollars. We are not going into fund balance. We are presenting a balanced budget. The budget went up 6.41% in total, but we'll go through every cost center. I'm just letting you know. So if we go to page 11,
Oh, and, I'm sorry.
yep,
One quick question. I looked at this before. Is there a reason why the COVID, or did you say why the COVID isn't on there?
we're not using it. We don't need to. We are presenting a balanced budget without any COVID funds.
So you don't put that anywhere, the totals in the budget paperwork?
Not in general fund. That is sitting in an escrow fund.
That's an escrow.
That is,
Gotcha.
but we are not incorporating it in any of these budgets right now.
Okay.
So,
So what are we gonna use the COVID money for then? I assume we have some intention for it.
We do, this year,
Yeah.
for this current year, we're gonna use some of it,
to balance fund balance, and we'll get that next meeting.
make up for a shortage.
So we're gonna use it in the current fiscal year, not the next.
Correct.
Some of it,
Yeah.
some of it. There'll still be some left over. Is that
Absolutely,
correct?
yep. There will be some left over, and the board actually needs to have a meeting to what are those priorities to spend that
And
money for.
there's plenty of projects for that balance.
That's a whole different meeting, but is not in this budget, or any of these budgets.
And that's just to point out, especially for the new guys, that the new individual that hasn't been in this before, even on prior year's resources, it's what you're going to use. It's not what is necessarily the total balance. So the COVID funds, they don't show up here because they're not being used in this budget. It's not that they're not there or have been used up. They haven't.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, that was, well, I'm sorry, I don't know if now's the time for a question. I appreciate you, Ann, going through each page, because that's going to help me, I know. And what's hard for me is looking forward without knowing where we are with this current year. So I hear what you all just said, that's for a future meeting, but it's kind of hard to like really say that this budget looks good until I
Well,
know.
that's
where
what
we
you
are.
have. You
This
have
is
it
your
right
new
here.
budget. Your budget, we
Under the
will-
orange is your prior year.
I've seen it. Under the orange is the actuals up to now, which doesn't, I mean, we haven't finished so much.
We have 1 month to go. It's
Exactly.
pretty,
So-
but that's because of when we have to adopt.
Yeah,
That's
I
what we're
understand.
stuck with.
But even just projections of like, hey, how are we going to look by the end of March?
We're
for
gonna
the
be
current
about 250 in the hole.
year? Yeah, see, I mean, and that, I kind of knew that, but again, seeing it by category, like that would be helpful for me. in
We will
terms
do
of
that next
looking-
meeting. That's that reconciliation.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yep.
There, that, I just wanted to state for me, like, it almost, I mean, I know as a newer person, I'm just saying, like, it'd be helpful to do the reconciliation before, we get to the next
but
year's
it-
budget. And I know we're not there yet,
The
but I'm
bud-
just
they're
saying.
So
two
we'd be doing the
indistinct-
reconciliation in January or something, we couldn't, obviously, really the reconciliation, the final reconciliation will be after March 31st.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I understand we haven't adopted this budget yet. That's part of what this meeting is. What I'm saying is like
Right.
having a sense of where the reconciliation is would help me.
Well,
to-
and thus the prior year, the prior years in the back.
Exactly.
Right,
I
think
just
of
wanted to
the-
state that as a
Yeah.
newer person. That's what I'm
Fund
saying.
balance will always be fund balance. This is your budget going into the next year, and we are balanced. We are not going into fund balance. We are not going into COVID funds. We will balance based, and we'll go through that, and we will present a balanced budget. There are years we have been in the prior year fund balance. I'm telling you right now, we're not doing that. We have a plan to balance based on revenue generation.
For next year, yes.
This,
Yes.
this budget that we're going over
Is balanced, yes.
is based on, it's a balanced budget.
I don't have an actual until the audit's done in like September. That's when I'm just giving you estimates. There are so many journal entries that happen because of just accruals and everything that needs to be done as far as GASB. Those numbers are different than what they are today, and that's why I'm giving you that estimate.
I understand. Yep.
So, and then your next meeting, you will balance with COVID funds unless you want to go into fund balance. So those are decisions that you as a board have to make.
I understand. Yep,
Okay.
totally. Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to state that for me as a newer person,
Okay.
so thank you.
Nope.
Yep.
Okay, page. So,
And one more item to clarify, the budget is balanced as presented to you this evening without going into COVID or fund balance. Any modifications to this budget would have to have a corresponding revenue source that would help balance it, assuming it's an increase in expense, okay? And that's, I think, the projection of using COVID balance for this upcoming fiscal year, the one we're talking about right now. If tax revenue hadn't been modified or hadn't come in higher than anticipated, that's where that COVID was being discussed to be used
Right.
to balance this upcoming year's budget.
Yep.
Okay.
Gotcha. I understand that.
All right.
Yep. Thank you.
so, go to page 11. This is basically our general fund revenue. That is all we get, are these few categories to balance our budget. That's the only revenue that comes into general fund. So, before I got the estimates from the assessor's department, I had not anticipated, and this is why we're going through this, and these are some major things that have changed our projections, or my projections, or whatever, is because when we got that issued for, when they figured out what the estimated taxes will be, they went up 6%. And that was huge. That was a $251,000 balance that I wasn't expecting. If you look in prior years, it doesn't go up that high. It did because of the inflation was 5%, plus all the new homes, plus all the construction that's going on. So the economy in Grosse Ile is doing well because the state said, okay, well, you're going to give your 5%, then with our building and with our construction. So
I know everybody's probably out there going 5%. It was higher than that. The 5% is the cap on the property tax. So despite the inflation going up 8%, let's say, we are capped for property tax at 5%.
right.
So that's what she means by 5%.
Right, I'm sorry, and then except for your new builds and capping. So once we got that kind of changed the light, because if we look at our taxes over the last couple of years, you're never gonna see that high of an increase. It was going up steadily but slowly. So that was very surprising. The other thing is state shared revenue. When I did state shared revenue, last year I used little million, over $1 million. The state had excess money, and they did give us excess money, and that's going to be included in our reconciliation. But if I'm doing budget to budget, the new number that I got is $1.2 million. So that increased to 20. That was unexpected.
Sorry, clarify that a little bit, Ann. So
this is state shared revenue. So it's our only other. So what has happened is the state had extra money, so they distributed it out to the communities.
yeah, is that?
And
But that is. You said something about. Is that going up 20% this year? Or is that just because of the way it's fallen? Wow,
It's
okay.
it's you're going to see me on our budget. More came in than the 1009, so that's going to be a reconciling item. But that was the number I was giving last year when I was projecting the budget. So they gave us more in the current fiscal year. That's going to be part of your reconciliation. Plus, they're estimated at 1.2. So just budget to budget, that gave me another 200. I mean, those two things changed our outlook altogether.
So they didn't give us 20% this year. It's through the 2 years, right, including this year. Gotcha.
Yes,
Right.
but it looks like that, but it helped our budget situation. Those were the two major issues that came upon before projections were done, that this has come through. So, like I said, you get these numbers in January, so you're getting them and you're like, whoa, this changes everything. So those two numbers are obviously a major portion of it. Admin fees went up a little bit due to the 2 increase in millages. So what our admin fee is, instead of charging an admin fee to the residents of 1%, we do it internally to help pay for administration. So we charge all the funds that collect taxes or that use taxes a 2% admin fee, and that's just based on additional taxes that we do the 2%. Does that sound?
So let me get this straight. So you're charging including the millages or the other funds. You're charging
Yes.
1%.
So I'm charging for finance, for doing the taxes, for collecting taxes.
For the different funds.
For the
fire.
payroll. I'm charging them all 2%. Yeah, and you can see that through the funds, how we do that.
Yeah. I need to look into that, but I'm not a big fan of that. It feels like we voted against that, and it sounds
It's
like
internal.
It's internal.
It's
It's
internal.
internal.
We don't charging them. You're going to collect what you collect.
Kyle, in other words, like fire has a budget of $1 million. 2% of that million is going to funnel it to the
General fund.
to the general fund for what the administration does for the fire.
Was that done?
It's not,
That's
it
been
has
always
nothing
done.
to do with the residents.
Done that, yep?
Yes.
Okay, always
Yeah.
been done
Yeah.
that way? Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha, okay,
Yeah.
that helps, that makes me feel better.
It just helps to pay for payroll. You know, literally, we call these all separate funds. They would have to go get their own departments to do, literally, if that's the way.
I misunderstood, I thought it was
Yeah,
a new
no.
thing.
No, no,
No,
and
no,
it's
no.
not, it's
No,
not
good
it has
question.
nothing to
Yep.
do with the resident.
Yep.
It's all internal.
Yep. Interest income I raised because, wow, you know what, Dave's been really just surprised with all the interest income that we've been earning. So assuming that's gonna go up, a little bit. And the only other thing that's odd is the sale of open space. So last year, we did a sale of open space. In the current fiscal year, we're waiting to close on some properties, depending if we do or don't, by March 31st, that will be reflected in our reconciliation. And then we still have some properties out there that we potentially can sell in the amount of $90,000.
That's the 240,000 on line 694.
That was last year's 22-23. We needed $240,000 of property. We are, Derek may go into it, we just sold 2 properties. We're gonna sell open space to ourselves, and then there's another properties, possible properties that are out there. So
Yeah.
we're
it's
selling
the-
our own,
It's the real estate that we
Yes.
have up for sale. That's what that's made of.
yeah.
And that's what we had, I know a couple of pieces that were sold somewhat early on last year, and they just are closing now. So,
Yep.
Those are
that's
those
why
properties that,
you have to reflect it differently.
those are those properties that the board declared as surplus,
Yeah.
5 months ago. We got the realtor. The one property we're talking about is on Meridian with open space, and the other one's on Island Boulevard. That lot that's currently on the market. So they may or may not sell by the end of the fiscal year, but that was expected in the budget at $240,000 for the sale of properties.
Right. So just depending how those go, they're gonna either be this year or, you know, just depending on that. So it's just a timing issue. Okay, page 12, we just get court. It's an in and out. You're gonna see it, you're gonna see a court revenues and court expenses. So, and every year it comes close, we either make some money or we ended up losing some money. Not losing, but not getting all of it kept back. Page 13, which is just police revenues. We consider it part of general fund. It's just basically simple things, animal licenses, copies, just everything. The big thing that is in here, you'll see on the bottom, is the operating transfer in. And what that is it's 25% of the dispatch that the fire pays for, and we put it into the general fund. Page 14 is our building department revenue. Ross was thinking about, they were gonna look at some fees and maybe adjust some fees. And like I said, we are still building, we are getting homes built, we are getting a lot of activity with renovations still. So there are the building fees, and as the building fees raise, the expenses will raise too, if you look on the other side, because there's obviously gonna be more inspections, and so that's kind of a give and take type of thing. They are related, and you'll see that when we go to look at the expenses. But that's the building department. And so just projecting some increase in fees and activity. Page 15 is just a little planning and zoning type little revenues that they get in the building department as well. Page 16, now we're gonna start going into the different cost centers. Page 16 is the township board. It pretty much is what it is. We don't make changes. I'm not gonna do $5 here, $10 here. If you look at the projections and the history, it's within a couple $1,000s. So we just kind of keep that the same. There's really nothing that needs to be changed, and it's just our memberships and elected official salary. Page 17 is that court. So again, that's the in and out for the court. Page 18 is our supervisor. Same thing. It's pretty much is what it is. Pretty much stays the same. The next page is number 19. We're looking at the township manager expenditures. Derek is divided 50/50 between his manager duties as well as in the Department of Public Services budget. So we split him 50/50 and all his benefits as well. So that's why that looks like that. Labor relations, we took down $15,000 because both union contracts are now complete. So,
One is complete, the other one's
well, in the
But
process,
they should be
done.
complete by the end of this
Yeah.
fiscal year, yes.
Yep, yep. So, that's why we took that number down. Number 20, page 20 is elections. In this, budget, we are budgeting 3 elections. There could be less, there actually could be 4, but the likelihood of the 4th was probably not gonna happen, so we were being in the middle and decided to, budget for 3 separate elections.
I did have a question on this. So I did see in the actuals that we've spent over the fiscal year amounts for this year on elections.
We had a budget 1 and there were actually 2, so
Okay.
it just, yep.
Gotcha.
There was a,
So that's
they
something that
threw,
would
they
be-
threw in another election on us and we only budgeted 1.
And that would be something
the
we do
special.
in the
That was a
reconciliation
special.
meeting?
We did.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was
okay.
the special election we had, that we threw in, that we didn't budget.
There's also some grant funds that are yet to have come in to reimburse the clerk's department for some of the expenditures that may have, or may be showing to be over.
Right.
So they do have some reimbursements that are coming in yet, so.
Gotcha, I understand. So for me, I mean, just as I said earlier, like that's the sort of thing that's helpful for me as we look at next year's budget. It's like, oh, we went a little bit over budget here. You know what I mean? That would be helpful for me to see. And I'm sort of seeing it, but that was something I noticed as I was going through the actuals.
Right.
And the reason for the election increase, or the cost of the elections going up, is because of some of the legislation that passed this past November that, you know, has an impact on the local government's cost. So, a lot of this is statutory and, you know, established by the legislature on, what we have to do, so.
And Kyle, you're kind of explaining my situation of budgets. When we go to reconcile, they'll be right on, and you'll go, oh, they're right on. You won't say, what happened there? Why did we budget and why was it actual? That's why I'm not the one that doesn't want to reconcile. If it goes over, there's a reason for it. And what is that reason? But if now we're going to reconcile, your budget's going to be actual and everything's going to be good. And then how do you budget next year? Oh, budget's actual. You never get that sense of what you're talking about. And that's why I've never done it, because it means nothing at the end of the day. Your actual is your actual. There's nothing we can do about it. This budget is a working tool. At the end of the day, it is what it is, right? Those financial statements are more important than this budget because that's what everyone looks at. No one's looking at this budget. This is our working document.
Sure. I think for me, well, I mean, everything I've seen wherever the actuals look to me like they're going over, like there's nothing I've seen that's bad. I want to be very clear about that. For me, it's just understanding as a board member, like I would like to know, I had to like look in and really look into like, hey, we went over, I mean, I know I joined a little bit later. I just would want to be informed of like, hey, we're going over the budget we approved earlier. And that's what would be helpful for me as I go into these sorts of meetings, you know.
And a lot of times when we have like an action item as a manager that's presented to the board as far as a request for an expenditure, there'll be a set of information down below that'll say whether the item is budgeted or whether it's not budgeted. And there should be some explanation as to if it's an unbudgeted item, where you're gonna be maybe underspending in a certain account and where that money's gonna come from to be able to fund that, so you're not over budget as a total cost center. So look for that on some of your action items as well.
Okay, that's
Right.
good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, so, yeah, which of course you don't have your budget with you and have a running list, but over budget, they're coming to us for that individual thing to fund it because there isn't money in the budget for it. So you are made aware of it during the year, but not in the terms of looking at it as budget, you know, so.
I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but a presentation would have been able to solve all these problems, right? We could have put on one side where we're at, where we budgeted last year, where we're at now.
That will happen on,
It's right
when,
here.
that's gonna be happening
Right
on March.
here.
This is not a presentation, Jim. This is a line item
This
budget.
is,
Have you guys even seen the suite of Microsoft products available this year? This
no,
is
we're-
ridiculous.
Jameson, we're doing a budget. This is how the budget is done. It's because it can be done somewhere, a different way. We can talk about that. But this is how it's done. You have in your packet, if you look at it, you will see, here's 22, 23, here's 23, 24,
But
here's
there's
the
more
difference.
powerful tools and better ways for us to
Yeah,
do this that we're not taking advantage of.
I don't,
There's a reason that stuff exists. Like, companies spending millions of dollars a year aren't sitting in their boardroom reviewing all these
well,
lines. They're
I'm
looking
sorry,
at charts and
I know,
graphics.
I know you love the electronic. That's nice. This is what we have. That's it.
Yeah,
I
if
mean,
you
I
want
don't
it
know what
different,
else
you need
say.
to let me know. You can't do it the day of and say, you had this budget for.
I can't
week."
actually believe that you didn't think to make a presentation, Ann. I'm so upset right now. This is ridiculous.
Well, I think that's a comment that's out of place, because it isn't ridiculous. This is the way this township has always done it, and it has been
Since what,
fine. And it has been
1823?
fine.
Like,
Jameson, this is not budget. If you want to talk about this issue, we can, but not now.
fair enough.
Go ahead, Ann.
So the next one is the clerk's office, page 21. Within the clerk's office, we have 2 full-time people. And there really isn't any changes that, again, you see the retirement go up in this one, but some of them go down. So this one went down. Page 22 is just the second half of it, so that budget was down 0.87%, so it's pretty much stayed the same. If you go to page 23, the finance department, in there as well are 2 full-time people. Not really any changes. Page 24 is the assessment office, which is basically 1 person and 1 consultant that does the assessing. It went down because the healthcare was the big issue and because someone decided to opt out instead of take insurance.
What's section 125?
That is a health savings account.
And I'm sorry,
Yep.
sorry to slow you down here. Is Tim's salary somewhere else, or is his?
It's in the consultant.
It's not marked on this.
It's marked consultant.
It's
Go down to the
shown in the
consultant.
full-time salary.
No, it's not. That, no,
5 lines up from the
Oh.
bottom.
it's consultant.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
So,
816.
That's what we're looking at for, I didn't mean to mention his name, I mean, everyone,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
But mention names.
He's our
Right.
assessing consultant.
That's where I wonder which one was he.
Yeah.
Okay,
The full-time is the full-time.
I got it,
sa-
yeah.
Okay.
okay, thank you.
25 is just border review, staying the same. 26 is the treasurer's office. Within the treasurer's office, there are also 2 full-time employees.
and just stop a second while they're rolling the chairs around.
I don't want to get moved to the bad chair.
Yeah.
First come, first served.
Yeah, that's right.
I take the cards I'm dealt. Sorry for my delay
We pay
today.
him consultant, we
right.
don't do, 1099.
He's like a 1099.
Yeah,
He's not an actual
1099.
employee.
All right, Ann, you can continue.
Okay. Page 27 is our maintenance, building and maintenance and grounds. What we have here is basically, all our electricity, telephone, water, utilities. We do have the cleaning of the building. Within building and grounds, we do need 2 HVAC units, and I did put those in here.
Is that 27? Sorry, what page?
Page 27, yep.
931.
Yep, so that 26,000 is 2 of them. I think the last one we spent about 13,000 on, so that's an estimate that
Those
they're
are
in
the
there.
emergency expenditures, right? Or no?
You got the one that
Right.
we had for
No.
the unit that went down.
Yeah, there's two more. Yep.
But these are budgeted expenditures for next year, because we have two that are in poor condition, so it's,
Oh, gotcha. So this is
Budgeted
on
for the
top-
replacement of
On top of
those.
the emergency ones we did.
Yep, and then
Gotcha.
Yes.
yep. But the emergency one happened this fiscal year, right? So this would be next, okay?
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Then if you go to the bottom, that's our bond payment on the Township Hall. That will be paid off in 4/1 of '25.
And then that interest expense goes away.
The whole bond payment goes away. We're
Okay.
done. The building's ours, just like your house.
So your principal and your interest, so 994 and
Yeah.
995.
Yep.
Okay.
Page 28. Well, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and 34 make up a lot of the general fund and a lot of pages in here. It's the police department. If we look at, so the police department in this budget contains 4 administration people, 18 police and dispatch people, 1 animal control for a total of 22 people, and 1 additional is in the drug forfeiture fund, so that makes up to 23 people. Also included with this budget is 17 retired people that we will continue to pay healthcare for. If you look at, this is the big course of it, because if you look at the general fund expenditures, salaries and benefits make up about $3.8 million of the almost $3 million. So of the police budget, we always say this, 90% is employees and contractual of the budget that they're being presented.
Is the $35,000 overtime increase the result of like the wage increases, or is there actual more overtime?
The overtime, a lot of it was based on the 12-hour shifts. That's why the increase.
There's
Yeah,
a couple of
And,
different things
yeah, the
baked
12 hours.
into that.
Right.
It's wages, based upon increases.
Of
based upon the
overtime.
contract, 12-hour shifts, and the full shift complements with the officers that you have generate some
Right.
overtime.
Like I said, that's the major portion of it. If you look at the page, so that's 28. So yeah, and like I said, we do have, there's 17 retired as well, that has to be in there as well. So page 20, the rest of the budget is, we look at 29, our insurance and bonds is basically our general liability insurance. That has went up about 10% across the board, but if we look at what is happening in this world, it's affected everything. So as far as property and replacement, and so that has gone up. Page 30. Ups and downs, pretty much 31.
I've got
If
a
it jumps out at you, let me know.
question on page 30, and maybe Chief Carmack would have to answer this one, but the gun range contract has gone down by $9,000, which it's great that we're saving money. It looks like you guys found somewhere else to shoot.
I think, and I can,
No?
Doug, you want me to answer it?
Sure, I just
Okay.
want to make sure your officers are still getting trigger time.
I think
Okay.
that the police department actually worked really hard to try to negotiate that contract or negotiate a new contract with Trenton. I believe they're staying with the same range. It's just they worked their tails off to get a better deal and to work with them, and that's where
Okay.
I believe the savings came.
You guys are like picking up brass and working the late shift there and stuff like that.
They wash their Trenton's cars. they-
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, cool.
Page page 31, maintenance for vehicles, and we gotta realize when we were going into these budgets, just like your costs are raising, everything's raising for us as well, whether it be bullets, whether it be cars, whether it be, equipment. I mean, these budgets are seeing inflation as well as we are in our own pockets.
I did want to point out one quick item on page number 28. So annually, the township manager comes to the township board with non-union wage adjustments. And usually that happens after the fiscal year has started, basically the first meeting in April or so. So there are some market adjustments that are built into this for non-union members within the police department. So there are some suggested modifications here, and that's based upon market adjustments. So I wanted to make you aware of that so it doesn't come as a surprise when that's presented to you in April. And that will come with a complement of information that shows that these adjustments are based upon, market adjustments. It'll come with comps with other communities in the area for comparable positions. So just wanted to point that out.
Derek, so we'll be voting in April for these raises, correct?
Correct, but I firm
Voting in March.
in March is.
And the end of March? I mean,
I'm sorry, they'll be built into the budget, right?
Yeah, so it's
They're
the last
anticipated in the
meeting in
budget.
March.
Yeah, but you will be presented with an action item that will have all the adjustments.
Yeah, no, I got what you meant.
And those are on page 28, right, Derek?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, at the top.
I think the first step in all this is to make sure that you have the funding available in the budget, so it's part of the budget conversation, so I just wanted to point that out.
Sorry, Ann, where?
No, that's okay. 31, maintenance vehicles, a little bit more maintenance because of the fleets are getting a little older. Page 32. The big one is the difference in the computer network, where a consultant was hired to do the computer work. You'll see that across the board in general fund as well. Someone in-house used to do it last year.
So our consultant now from the township is now doing the police departments?
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, that total, yeah, doing across the board, yep. So that portion, so that's a $36,000 increase.
And that is their cost share of the overall contract
Right,
expense.
Split it up between all of them.
Right.
Yep, yep. And then, computer replacements, some of the computers are old, we need a couple servers, so we built a server in there as well. And then, 33 is just, animal control, pretty much stays the same. She does have her escrow balance, we don't include that. She has her animal shelter balance, we don't include that in here. This is just from operations. This is just more the maintenance of the, or everyday maintenance of the facility. 46, page 34, it's just the reserves, pretty much stays status quo. Page 35 are now the expenditures for the building department. There are 3 full-time employees in this budget, as well as 1 retired employee. The big increase, and as we said again, as he raises the fees and raises the activity, the expenses will raise accordingly. So you can, we'll go to page 36, but you can see the fees raising accordingly. The big adjustment in here is master plan, that the master plan needed to be updated. That was the big expense, the big difference.
So there's 50,000 allocated for that under 817-300.
And they are going for grants.
A grant.
So, we should have close to 100,000 for the master.
And then page 36, again, you can see all those inspection fees. As the revenue goes up, then the inspection fees, building, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing, those are all going to coordinate with the increase in income, with the more activity that they're gonna have to go inspect. Page 37 is just the cable area. Nothing's really changed there except we're going to get a new sound system. So that was the big change there.
That's for this room, right, the sound system?
Yep. Yep. Page 38, professional services. These are the auditor, our financial consultant, engineer, legal, and planning. So these are more the general expenditures. We have in the engineering, these would be non-project related. So these are some miscellaneous engineering stuff that just out of the blue. Not, I mean, if there's going to be a big sewer project, the engineering costs are going to go to the sewer project. If there's going to be some roads, the engineering costs are going to go to the road. So these are like non-associated type engineering products. We took, obviously it went down it went down $25,000 because last year we budgeted for the engineer, the bridge engineer, and so that's why that went down.
Legal fees have been adjusted a little bit based upon workload, so that's, you see some adjustments there.
And I don't know, we haven't had them long enough to determine where that number could possibly end up, but it's a starting point. 39, page 39, some general expenditures. This is where you can see, as far as the retiree medical, there's 11 retirees that retired out of general fund, not including police, but just 11 retirees who have retired out of the general fund. And then, as well as their pension costs for those same particular people. Again, you can see we raised the general liability insurance a little bit due to the increase in cost, and that's separated too, depending, like the police have their own like legal liability. So our liability is actually broken up between property, cars, the board, legal. So it's broken up differently. So the police went up a little bit because they have a separate law enforcement that is a separate umbrella under the policy. And then again, you can see our computer contract, our portion of it, the Township Hall. We do need a new server as well. That was at $26,000, and we are also going to the cloud. So that would be another $10,500. So we did increase the computer area by about $16,000. Also, at the bottom of the page, this is the restaurant bond payment, interest, and agent fees. And again, this will be off the books as a 4/1 of 25. That will be paid off as well. Alrighty, so that concludes general fund. And like I said, it is balanced. We're not going out of prior year resources. We're not using COVID funds. On to the fire department. If we look at the fire department, that's page 40. That's just a summary. Let's go to page 41. Is their revenue. So basically what they get for revenue is basically their property taxes, as we have talked about. Last year, we did renew that millage. We got a new millage for the fire department, which brought an additional $605,000 to the department. And as you can see, because of that, we are no longer using COVID funds to help with the fire department. You see how that got taken out? So no COVID funds here. I want to go to page 43. Well, we'll get there, but I'll come back to it. So 42 is just ambulance revenues. We get about $200,000 a year. So that's really all the revenue that it is to operate the fire department. It's just the property taxes and basically ambulance fees. We go to page 43. This is, so 43, we have budgeted 2 full-time employees, 21 active firemen, and 19 retired firemen. If you, again, we're going to take a look at if you go through lines 706 to line 724, That's a little over $1 million, $1,091,091. Their total budget is 1.3 million. So their salary and wages take about 80%. So when I added up the total benefits and salaries, it was a little over $1 million, $1,091,091. If you look at last year's taxes, we weren't even covering that because it was $1,003,000. That's why the need to go out for additional millage at the fire department. We weren't sustaining or maintaining. We were starting to go into a deficit every year. So again, you can see on page 43, we no longer need the $90,000 out of COVID. If you can see in 2023 to 2024, some of the bottom lines, stuff like publications, in last year's they had zeros because we were running so short that some expenditures we were putting into the equipment fund and like maintenance of equipment. It was still, but it was probably more, now that we have the additional revenue, we should probably put them back into the operations because they're more operation type stuff. So they had zeros before, but like auditing fees, uniforms, maintenance of the building, put it more in the operational section instead of the equipment section.
I have a question from page 43.
Okay.
They line 710 and then line 776. So they have a uniform allowance that's more than doubled this year, and then they also have a line item for uniforms, which was not a line item in
Right.
2022, 2023.
The uniform allowance, we treat the full-time people different than the part-time people. I can't pay part-time people more. I can't pay regular people. They have a salary. I can't pay them more, so we give them a uniform allowance to make them whole. So the $10,000 is 2 full-time people with a uniform allowance. The part-time is the money that they get to do their runs. This is going to sound more complicated than it is. I'd have to show you. But the part-time, they all get paid. So they get about, let's just say, part-time people get $5,000.
So
And then
the
uniforms are
part-time-
just physical the one on the bottom is just what they're paying and buying uniforms for.
Jameson, also it's worth mentioning, if you take a look at page 46, uniforms were in the equipment line item,
Right.
or the equipment budget to the tune of 5,000. That got moved out and allocated
I
towards your
see.
operational.
Yes. That's
Because
why
it's
they're
really
zeros.
more of an operational expense than it is a.
So the uniforms line item is for the part-time firefighters, and the department purchases them uniforms?
Yes,
And then the uniform allowance is actually the 2 full-time personnel?
correct. Yes, that's correct.
$10,000 seems like a super huge uniform allowance.
Well, it's making them whole. It's part of making them, the fire department whole. So
What
there's
is
a
that?
whole.
Can you explain that to me?
I can. When we went over to the new, since firemen obviously don't get paid, they get health care. And so there has been that they are no longer, not to pay any more than $100,000, not more than $1,000 deductible. So as our deductibles went up, as our health care went up, we make them whole, so we pay them a salary of $5,000. So we make the chiefs, or deputy chief, whatever chief, we make them whole as well, so we give them the 5,000, whatever the part-time people get, they get to make them whole.
So the uniform allowance on 710 is actually covering the difference in healthcare costs.
Yes, yes, to make them the same as the part-time people.
Okay.
And that's kind of been there when they first started this turnaround. So since 2012, when we started doing this. Because like I said, they moved up from the rank, from, they moved up, so just to keep them whole, that's all that's about. Any more, that page? Page 44, again, if we look at 44, the $8,000 for phone was in the equipment when we were operational, so we put it back in here, and it made more sense to be in the operations portions. And then the 246 is what is left over for future, as we know costs are gonna increase, that 246 is probably gonna become lower. But we took the full taxes and then took what's the difference is, and it's the 246. Is what's just for future reference. It's basically gonna stay in their bank account, if that makes sense. And then that operating transfer out is what we saw going into the general fund. That's that 25%. And page 45 is the ambulance expenditures. Basically, it's just to run the ambulance services. In the past, again, we have a reserve for capital and purchase, or reserve of $150,000. Last year, we had nothing because we were actually using the ambulance money to supplement the operations because we were running short. And again, that's the reason why we went out for that additional fire millage.
And that's an appropriate use
Yes,
of it.
yes,
Ambulance
absolutely.
funds are, the charges that they charge for people, against their insurance to do runs on them. And that can be used for whatever you want to use it for.
Correct.
I know that there's been a bit of a strategy to try to bank some of that money for replacement of the ambulances and stuff, but there's nothing that says you can't use it for operations. It's a revenue generating activity.
What's the ambulance tax?
We have to pay tax on ambulance fees, believe it or not, and that just went into law a couple of years ago.
The state's taxing us?
I mean, state.
To have an ambulance?
Yes, it's a state, yeah. Yep.
That's ridiculous. All right, we just won't have any ambulances then. I'm just kidding.
All right, page 46 is the fire equipment fund. So now these funds that are just, they're like single funds, I put the prior year resources in there, so basically that's their bank account. That's what they have to operate. It's different with general fund. We just have our fund balance, that's our rainy day savings account. We want to operate on current revenues. We don't want to have to go into that reserve. But with these funds, our taxes are for equipment only, and that's all we can spend it on. And that's why I put prior year resources. That is your cash balance carryover. So when you do these different funds, that's what that's about, is this prior year resources, like funds like this. They just get revenue and you spend them for exactly that purpose. Does that make sense? So a lot of these funds have that bank account in them.
I've noticed that, and can you help explain that a little bit more? So why are we taking it down 150,000 or is that right? Am I reading that right? Or?
Yes, that's because it actually went up 150,000 because they didn't expend as much money. So I'm just telling you, at the end of the day, here's what I project their cash balance to be. And it just depends on if they spent more or spent less than they budgeted. So it's just their cash balance at the end of the day.
Also, there's an expense listed of $270,000 for new ambulance.
Right. Right.
And can you also just, again, clarify, I think I ask this every year, that we have limitations to how much we are allowed to save, that in a sense, when we collect taxes from residents, we have an obligation to spend those revenues in a timely manner, that the people who paid the money get the service. So we can't save long-term in that regard. We can't
That's more like a
collect
policy.
taxes today for 10 years from now.
It's more like a policy than it is, because right there, they're gonna say, we're saving this money in the end, because if we have to buy a rig, it's gonna cost 1.7 mil. So there's gonna come a time that they say, especially with an equipment type fund, because that's all it's supposed to be used for, to buy equipment. But obviously, we're not gonna buy a fire truck every year. So they're saving, the intent of this is to save the money, so when it comes up, they don't have to borrow, and they're gonna buy a truck. per se. So
But there is a limit to how far we can go with that.
that's a policy, because even general fund, when you have like $2.5 million in your general fund, that's for our rainy day. There is no that we're gonna have to spend that 2.5 million. That's a policy. And there have been times in the past that I've been sitting here that we didn't go out for the fire equipment fund. We just didn't, because we needed some other leeway or something else that it was more important at that time. So we even looked at that when we were talking about millages. You know, can we non-assess it for a year? Can we wait? Can we so that's all policy, board policy. There's not any rules to that. Is how we want to tax
Past,
them.
you said like the rainy day fund can only be such a percentage of our,
And that's a policy too. I mean, that's a policy. But with general fund, we like it between 15 and 25. Ours is higher, but that's just financially a good thing when bad things came in. So our fund balance in general fund is about $2.5 million.
And just some more questions on this. So, yeah, Dave pointed out the ambulance, and I saw that there was a reserve for capital purchases in the ambulance operating expenses. So if
Right.
that were purchased, would that be taken from there too, or what? How
Yeah, I mean, definitely, ambulance can be bought with these, definitely an ambulance can be bought with the ambulance fund, or it can be bought, obviously, with the equipment fund. So that is an availability. We just put it in there so we were gonna, he was considering, or wanted the board to be aware that, yes, we are looking at an ambulance. He said it was gonna take 2.5 years for build out right now. Just was kind of getting it in front of the board, and that's why John decided to put this in here. Just
Okay.
kind of a heads up.
But the ambulance fund we can use for operating expenses, whereas the
Absolutely.
equipment fund we
Absolutely.
Gotcha. So okay,
Yeah.
it would be better to use it in the equipment fund than in the gotcha.
Absolutely.
And then, I mean, just another thing in general. I'm just saying for feedback as a newer member. So like just knowing that 1.6 million is for the possibility of a new rig, like those things are helpful for me to see, like, you know, because I don't know, there might be other capital improvements that they need at the public
Right.
safety building. I'm hearing we can't really probably use that for that, right? Because it's an equipment rather than a building expense.
Right, I mean,
yeah.
they're, like, they do equipment, they can put radios in here, they can do, I mean, our language is pretty vague to say equipment. What is the definition of equipment? So last year, when we were putting maintenance in there, yeah, it's maintaining the equipment, it truly is so it's, the language is vague, but we sure want to make sure we're using it for the right definition.
Gotcha. But it couldn't be a building, right? We couldn't use that for that, right?
To build a building, we were going to do the garage. A lot of the garage was spent out of here because it was to take care of the equipment.
Gotcha.
So the language that
Vague.
the language that the millage question goes on the ballot with
Right.
is what dictates what those funds can be used for. So if it says it can be used for radios and a fire truck, then it has to be used for radios and a fire truck. If it says
Right.
equipment, well, then it's a little bit more, a little bit
Broad.
more broad as far as what you can use it for.
It's much like that. They have
That's it.
purchase money,
Yep.
they have maintenance money. They cannot use purchase money to maintain it, or vice versa, because of the language of the.
Of the ballot, yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
And we can show you these languages. You can see that they are vague and that, you know,
And the fire department does maintain like an asset list, a capital asset list that has, timeframes on when vehicles time out and when they're in need of replacement. And, they maintain all that information. So if you want more detail on kind of the age of their rigs and what they're looking at as far as when they need to be replaced, they have all that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
and you can see like even last year, just they were going to buy a chief vehicle. Just because it was in there didn't mean we're going to buy it. They have it carried over till this year. So no one buys just because it's in here. And they bought the other thing, but and then they said they need some doors. The garage doors are bad. So that's that. 47 is their public safety, and then they also have, on 47, they have a public safety building maintenance fund. How this is done is because it was combinations for things that the building needs in general, like for both departments. Instead of taking out of their operations, we use the cell tower revenues are in here. We put them in here every year. Those were dedicated to the public safety building as well as the farm, Centennial Farm. And also, what happens is they each put in $10,000 that transfer in. And right now, at the end of this year, they have $195,000 that they can spend on common areas. The chiefs talk and they figure out what they need to do, and they spend that money as well. So a lot of times they can't build a lot of maintenance into their budgets, so they do it this way and have that available if there's common areas or common things that need to be done.
What's a gas boy?
That's our gas machine out there in the back that
Oh,
everyone uses. Yep.
Okay.
Our gas
And it's
tanks.
gas tanks and the
Okay.
yeah.
And to be clear, this isn't anything that's millage related, right? This
Nope.
is just a fund
No,
that's
no.
separate from all that, yep.
Yep, with the cell towers. And again, they don't spend it, they keep it for the big, for stuff that they need, so they have accumulated $195,000 in there. Again, just because we get money doesn't mean we spend it, we save it if we have to. Page 48 and 49 are the drug forfeiture accounts. We don't budget any revenue, we don't guarantee any revenue. We just show the expenditures of the one officer in page 48 and the balances. So as of our estimated balance without any additional revenue at the time right now is 290 and 175. Because there are no guarantees with that, so we don't want to guarantee that there's revenue coming in.
So line 780.504 shows federal expenditure increase of 158,000.
That's a reserve. That's basically the cash balance of 290 less the officer gives you 158 to use for other things, assuming no new revenue.
Okay.
Okay. All right. 48, 49. All right.
Just, Jameson, the actual increase there from prior year
Yeah.
is 133.
Yeah.
So there's forfeitures out
okay.
there that are coming in
Right.
that are reflected.
So wouldn't that be in the revenue line?
Revenue for next year, we don't know yet.
Yeah. I don't put any revenue
Boy,
for next year.
Could be anywhere from
Maybe it's
Zero
just-
to
This is a reserve,
Zero to a
it's
couple
not
million
expense,
dollars.
It's a reserve.
yeah.
Okay. I see.
All right. We are on to the rec department. All right, the rec department, page 50, we increased the budget by 74,000 at a 6.75%, and we can kind of go through, same as we've been doing. We'll go through golf, marina, pool, so this contains the golf, marina, the pool, the whole complex over there, as well as the recreation department, festival commission, is within this budget. So page 51,
Oh, I have
golf.
a question on page 50.
Yep.
The recreation department revenues, is that the millage?
yep,
And that's
and plus
only
their fees, no, and their
okay.
fees. Mhm.
Millage and fees.
Yep,
And then pool, marina, golf, and festival are all non-millage actual fees.
all fees, yep.
Okay.
And then the Water Edge Complex is the rent from the restaurant.
Okay.
51, and a lot of these are based on history and trends because we don't know what weather's going to give us, if it's going to be rainy, if it's going to be cold, if it's going to be, so we just kind of look at past years as our indication of where we project in the future. So we just, this one, assuming golf is going to go up, the last couple of years golf has gone up, so hopefully continues to go that way. 52, dockage is pretty much what dockage is, they're full. She increased her winter storage as much as she could put in there. I don't know if there's a waiting list, or you pretty much, is there for Marina? Still call, so,
They're packed in there well.
yeah. Can't get in there.
Thank Greg for that. He did
Yep.
something good.
Yep. 53, pool, pretty much stays the same based on trends where we see us going. 54. So here's 54. So top line is our property tax revenue. And then you can see all the events, line items. We also, in line 668, last year it was rent from 9,000, this year it's 0. We actually moved that to the farm because it is that renting of that building at the farm, our rec building. So we just moved that out of here and we put it over there, and you'll see that on that side.
Is there a rec section in the actuals in the back that I'm just not seeing?
Oh, yeah, and
It's
the
there.
trends, yep, yep.
It's there, it's in the back.
After two, I did the same order, so 650, 650.
Probably just back further than I.
Yeah, and you know what, oh, it's T16. I kind of, if your poll punched in, go through it, I didn't realize that, but.
I see, okay.
Usually on the revenues, Kim is very conservative, if you look at the trends. Or, 55 is Island Fest. Revenues are going up just to reflect more actual of last year. They did really well. Oh, she made that more actual. Does that, you guys looking at it? 457, oh, I forgot. Did you guys see the actual? It actually went up too. Just so we. On sorry, I'm looking at myself. So on the actual revenue from Island Fest last year was 113,000. That's why she budgeted 82. Does everyone see that? On T16, all the way on the right-hand corner, right-hand side. Anyway, that's why she raised that up. 56 is our rent from the restaurant, including rent, electric, and gas. That is our projected right now.
Can I ask one question? on
Sure.
this Restaurant,
Mhm.
and Jim, I don't know, tell me if you think this isn't for budget, but for budget reasons, when do you think we're going to be, making a decision? And that way we know what the rent's gonna be for the next year, but if it's still the same, is this coming up in a few months then?
Yeah, I would say in a few months. Derek? Where the negotiations?
I think a lot of the direction on where the restaurant goes is dependent upon the liquor license, which we're still waiting on. So, to answer your question, it kind of hinges on that.
I gotcha.
But irregardless, there is still a paying tenant in that facility up until when there could be a potential change, right? So, I don't know if that answers your question, Joe.
Oh, absolutely. So the 48 is still in.
It's
I mean,
it's more or less a placeholder right now because nothing's been negotiated. We're waiting because everything hinges on that liquor license.
Right, but we're still obtaining revenue is my
Oh, but
point.
we're still, yes.
We're still obtaining
Yeah.
revenue. Okay.
We don't forecast a vacancy of that restaurant during the next fiscal year, a vacancy that would cause a reduction in rent.
Okay. Thank you.
57 is golf expenses. Here we're looking at increases in oil, gas and equipment rental. So same thing as we talked about. Everything else is raising a little bit, and we're anticipating, like sod, fertilizer, chemicals, all that stuff to go up. And then we just moved the $2,000 down to the sod fertilizer instead of having two separate line items. That's just more maintenance. All right, 58. Here is, you can see we're gonna, so this is the marina, anticipating, again, putting some capital improvement into the marina. Change some line items. And then, on the bottom, the principal and interest is the loan, for the seawall of $75,000. That will be paid off in 2025 as well.
The loan from us, though.
Yes, from the township. Yep. 547, pool expenses. She did you did major pool, some repairs last year, so she didn't put as much into it as this year. Page 60, so now we get into the expenses. We put all the salaries into the recreational side of this. So there's 4 full-time people and 2 retired people for the facilities. 60, 61. There's really not much going on. On page 62, major change is removal of the playscape. Anticipated to be around $20,000. It's in there. That's a big change.
Are we budgeting any kind of replacement for the playscape? Is there any intention to give the children somewhere to play? I for one would want a budget for a new playscape.
Grants.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim, can
Kim, you have to.
Just so that the people watching at home can see.
The plan right now, I've been doing a lot of grant research. I've applied through Wayne County #1 and the Sparks grant. We were denied the Sparks grant in round 1. But again, you just keep pushing for those dollars. The estimate replacement of a playground averages between $215,000 to $250,000. I would love to be able to put that right into the budget, but those dollars are very high. Kiwanis is definitely raising funds. I spoke with them today. They're at about $4,000. It's a good start. I'm working with UTA. We are planning to do a community day out at Playscape. We're in the beginning stages of that. The hard part with recreation, we can't fundraise for that. So right now it's just grant research, saving our dollars. I'm looking at my fund balance as utilizing some of the funds for that. But that's where we are with the Playscape. So does that answer your question, I hope?
Yeah, it's not reflected here, but it's in the thought process.
Absolutely.
Page 63, anticipated vehicle purchase. Our vehicles are not doing too well. So we do anticipate a vehicle purchase out of there. And then in the reserve to make current revenue, current expenses, she has an additional $41,000 sitting in reserve for future capital improvement. Not quite the $215 that you want, but it's a start. And if we go Festival Commission, again, raised a few expenditure line items. mainly just for entertainment. Page 65. Some computer upgrades. Again, this is the more the expenditures of the Water's Edge complex, not the farm, but the Water's Edge complex, and what the repairs, insurance, gas and electric. Good there. Then we go to the farm. So on page, we'll just go to the revenue. So the revenue farm for the revenue is again the cell towers. We have the loot and rent over there, and we also have, as we said, we brought over the farm activity rental and pavilions we put into the farm.
That's the transfer in, Ann?
Yeah, no, that's just, we're gonna record all the revenue there from now on.
Okay.
Yeah, we just moved that all together. We,
So revenues in total item?
yeah,
Okay.
that, so 90,000 we're bringing in, between the 57,000 and the 32,000.
Okay.
That's for the farm. And then, expenses, we are budgeting basically in and out. We spent a lot of money on that fence last year. There isn't a lot of carryover, so I didn't add that to this budget. We're basically at a zero balance. Maintenance is just at just regular maintenance that needs to be done, and your typical utilities, with a reserve of about $34,000, in case something does happen that.
Are you on
isn't-
68?
Yep. Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
67,
and just
68.
a comment, if I may. So, part of what I've been looking at as I've been looking through this is just different sources of capital improvement. There's some funds in certain places, some funds in others. And this one feels like a place where we're lacking. Obviously, we spent on the fence this year, I know that.
Yeah,
But
did you
like
see yeah.
the barn is not looking so good over there either, you know? So
Yeah.
those are just things I'm concerned about with Centennial Farm and making sure we're able to maintain it long-term and budgeting for, so.
Is
I know Kim's
there-
on, I know we're all thinking about it, but I just, in terms of the budget, like, yeah, that's the place where we're capital improvement. Yeah. Mhm.
So the,
You know, rec has to be able to afford that. It comes out of the rec, it comes out of the, in this case, Centennial Farm, which is their revenue. So that, it's not only a question of, having to be looked at and done.
Right.
Which they're aware of. And Uda can update you on
Yeah.
that, but it also is, where's the money?
Yeah, no, and I know there's lease negotiations. and-
Yeah.
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 So if you-
the farm, the persons renting the farm use the barn, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's,
So one of the things that the CRC faces is that when, especially negotiating the contract, is that whatever we negotiate, that's what we have to do actual work at the farm. There's no magic pot of money. It's all based on what we earn from the farm itself, the revenues that come in from the tenants and from the user fees, et cetera, and the cell tower.
If you look at T21, this year, we spent 202, so now we're talking actual numbers. We spent $202,000, $164,000 on that fence. Actually, rec contributed $84,000 of rec money to help with that process, so that this fund broke even and not in a deficit.
And just, again, this is the way a department can run. They can move their funds around, whereas the township can't go to rec and take rec funds for township. Within the rec, they can move their funds around to take care of their specific needs.
Totally. Yeah, no, I mean, I think you all know, I know rec well. I know how diligent they are with their funds and how they're looking at these things. I just know from me looking at the numbers and what, I mean, again, I think you all know this, my family runs a farm, I know what it costs to maintain and keep a barn going. It's a lot of money, you know, so that's just an area where I know there might be some expenses that are coming up that I want us to all be looking out for, is what I want to say mostly.
Well, and I guess what Kim and I are trying to say, we are well aware of what's coming down the pike, but it's good that you ask, and I think it's important that we do discuss that
And that's what
beyond
comes
our meetings, you know, at the
with
time.
that COVID fund. That's why the board has to decide, what are your priorities? Where do you want that money to go? That's your windfall. Where does the attention need to be given? And so that's for a different discussion, but it's not in the stuff at all. Okay, on to, library, easy, in and out.
Before you get there, this, this goes on, and it does take some time mainly for the audience. Do you guys need a 5-minute break to
Well, they can
do
come
anything?
and
And the
go.
board, do you guys want to take a 5-minute break, or do you want to keep going?
I'm okay.
You're okay? Board's okay? What about you guys out there? Okay. All right, keep going.
All right.
Oh. Oh. All right, Ann.
So, library is basically an in and out. The why the taxes went up so much is because, we had to actually go back to our .3 mills in order to get our state penal fines. So, we were just assessing as much, actually, when we went with the city of Trenton, we have saved a lot of money than when it was with Wayne County. So we have saved an additional money. We actually put the millage down to .2. And again, the state comes in and says, nope, you can't do that. You got to put it to .3 so that we can all benefit from our penal fines, so that it wasn't taken away from us. So
From our
allocation with the library.
you're saying
So-
the
so when they-
penal fines?
Yeah.
Right, so when
Overdue
it-
books.
Yeah. We
well-
weren't going to be able to absorb them through the,
Also, there's a charge on your, let's say you get caught speeding, there's actually a charge on your ticket for library.
And go read
Penal
about
fines.
doing the speed limit?
yep, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Library cop.
right,
Percentage of those penal fines go.
I should have been a library cop.
yeah. So there again, we're stuck by the state, requiring what the state does so that we all could benefit, so that the whole library could benefit from our penal fine. So we actually had to raise our millage by .1.
We raised the levy. We have .4
Right,
available.
we went, yeah, we are allowed .4. We had it at .2, now we're at .3. Black Grant is just in and out, $20,000 for senior activities in the rec department. The next couple are just our bond schedules. They are actually incorporated within the budgets, but I just wanted to put it out there what we had. Again, Township Hall, Water's Edge is all in general fund. We already discussed those. We'll get into DPW. There are many bonds for water and sewer projects. This is just a summary of it. We also, the page 72 is our bond payments for our water system. Page 73 are our bond payments for our sewer system within the Department of Public Services, and we will get to those. We also have our millage bond issues from our state revolving loan funds, which is our Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 of the sewer project. Again, we have talked about it. One has fallen off when we were talking about our millages and what we needed. These were starting to fall off, and that's why we were going out for additional millages, because these were starting to fall off. So that Phase 1 came off in '22. We have another one coming off. This will be its last year of payment in '24, and then one in '25. And then our judgment bond goes out to 2027.
Hey, Ann, I thought I read, I'm not sure I read that in here, but the judgment bond ends in 27, not 25?
No, those are the other ones. So you can see the Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3.
Yeah, I
The
forget
first
what I
one,
read.
the judgment bond was one thing, and then the Phase 1, 2, and 3 is what's coming off.
Was that bridge? or was
That
sewer?
was the $40 million project, the
That's
sewer, that was
sewer.
the tunnels, yes.
Gotcha.
So those are starting to fall off.
Okay.
Okay, next is open space. Basically, this is the same, just, so what happened was when we get through that purchase of $130,000 of open space, that will adjust depending on the timing of that. As far as open space maintenance, we have about $185,000 in there. There are no additional property taxes. That has expired, but that money is in there for maintenance. We have, and then that line item 283, I just put the same ones in there if you look at it. They don't spend as much as they budget, but just in case, and then the future reserve is 129. So once that money's gone, that's gone. There is no additional millage for either of those. Drainage. Drainage, if you look at drainage on page 76, fund balance has went down from 650 to 305. We did major drainage in projects in the last year. So that went down. We increased the drainage grant program. That is a wonderful thing for our residents, and residents are taking advantage of it. So we raised that an additional $25,000. And then we have, again, future, reserve for future projects.
Right. Question on this, and maybe even road maintenance for a little bit later. I know you got the setup and so balance as well, but I know you also suggested earlier on when we were looking at different options not to levy as much. Is it possible to not levy as much on the drainage stuff for next year?
It's always a possibility. But like I said, he did some major projects. We do.
Yeah, you have the possibility always to levy less with regards to this, but, it gets back into the philosophy of what did the voters vote for? They voted for drainage improvements, and are you shorting them or circumventing what they have said their priority is by voting for this, by reducing the millage amount and not doing the projects you would have if you would have levied the full amount? But it is a possibility, yes, yep. And I think, our drainage millage levy is like 0.35,
yeah.
33 mil. So it's not a in the grand scheme of things, on a 16 mil levy, 0.33 is a fairly small amount. So you got to worry about sacrificing your priorities for that, small amount of savings on the total millage. So it's something we can talk about.
Page 77, bike path. So that collects $106,000. Prior year resources is $295. So basically your fund balance is $295 coming into this year. I didn't really change anything. Those are pretty much it. So money's available to get some maintenance done. I forgot to tell you. See that 2%? It was in every fund, but I didn't tell you. But on page expense 828, that's just that internal that will go to the general fund. So if you go back and look, it is in every fund that collects taxes. Okay, page 78. Got some real big numbers on it.
Hey, Ann, when you were saying number 828, the administrative fee of 2%, you're talking about the general fund charging an administrative fee laterally to other funds.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Based on their tax revenue.
It's an internal charge. It's not an
Right.
administrative fee to
Correct.
residents.
Right.
Okay.
It's
Well, that's what I
internal.
was checking out.
Yeah.
So-
Yep. Nope, and you'll see it across the board. I just didn't highlight it, but, like, obviously, the police department ain't charging the police department. I mean, it's every other fund that collects revenue.
And that's
tax
something
revenue.
I think that's been
That's in-
incorporated in
yeah.
the budget
Oh,
for
that's been-
20-something years.
That's been 20 years, yep. We haven't raised it, but I thought of it. So it's page 78 is the road millage. So if you look at the road millage, it has a lot of big numbers in it. So we passed that additional millage, that 1.4. which we actually collected this December. That's why my prior resources is high. We haven't spent it, but we collected that tax knowing that we're going into the next season to pay the bond payment and to expense it. So you can see the bond proceeds come in. Actually, we sold them today. We sold $15 million at 3.83%, which was great, and we kept our AA rating. So,
Excellent. Excellent.
that was, he said that we had 8 bidders. That's unheard of. Didn't he say that everything went really well today? So,
It was 15 million?
yep.
Stock market's bad.
Yeah.
That's a good interest rate. That's really good news. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was pretty excited about that today. Again, so the bond pros are coming in at $6.5 million. My one collection I already did is sitting in that prior year resources of 1.3, and then I'm getting another 1.3 going into this budget year. We just have basic numbers, and then you can see the road construction. We are planning on spending $8.4 million this year. Or within the next, you can see in our capital and projects. And then that interest payment is just the estimate that we had when we did the budget. So a lot of money coming in, a lot of money going out. Any questions? So yeah, so the 6.5 million we see here and the 8.5 was in our DPW. All right, we're going on to airport. So the airport budget, page 79, raised about 53,000, a little under 5% across the board.
So it looks like we actually lose money on the fuel farm.
We had a big discussion like that. We make money, but you are having other expenses incorporated into that. It's based on activity, but if you see the expenses for that, we're also taking into account salaries, operations. But as far as the gas itself, they were talking about the whole computation of how that's done.
I guess it's a enterprise fund, so it doesn't
Right.
affect the tax base, but
If you look at actuals, it's pretty much in and out because you are incorporating other expenses into that.
The place where I noticed the actuals are already over the budget from last
Yes.
year, but it's also because more has been sold. So,
Right,
yeah.
and gas prices are up.
Yeah.
So this is like a
And you're looking
ever-changing number.
You're looking at dollar figures, which are subjective to the price per gallon versus the gallons sold. So I mean, there's a lot that goes into the overall
Right.
computation of how that all works itself out.
That again is, when it's actual, then you know where it's at, but with gas levels and everything. So page 81, these are all her revenues, all her rents, or her leases, for the airfield side. She lists them out.
Just on the fuel farm again, I know the airport commission does really well at thinking these things through, but is it possible to tell them to charge more for fuel to cover some of the salaries, or?
She says she looks at what other fuel, like people literally will not land here and go to Monroe for 2 cents, just as you will go to the gas station across the street or go there. So she does consider all this. What is that called? Price?
Dynamic pricing.
Dynamic
She
pricing.
does.
Yep,
Wow.
yep,
And-
and it's true.
You're selling
It's a convenient.
If you're doing that kind of pricing and you just filled up your tanks yesterday at the high side, but now the market says you need to lower your price. There is a markup. I mean, we do mark up the price of the gas. But you can't guess them all.
Mhm. So it's 8182. She just lists out all her stuff. So we go to we'll go to the expenses now. At page 83, We do separate their expenses, 70-30, airfield 70, Commerce Park 30. Just kind of doing where the guys are doing most of their work. This budget has 3 full-time people as well as 2 retired people. A lot of her things are very maintenance oriented. You can see in different spots there's maintenance. So on page 83, and I kind of looked, I'm like, why is 84 got less? We do have a couple different maintenance areas. So sometimes it's just where we place things, like 775 you see on 83, and then on page 84 it says maintenance building. So one and the same. Probably need to get rid of some of those maintenance items because it's all the same. And this, in the airport on 828, we charge actually 10% of Karen's pay plus 2% revenue. Karen does their billing, so we felt to charge them a little bit more because that's a whole position. Let's see. Anything else? No?
But that was, Jameson, that was done when Karen was the airport
Yes,
secretary?
at one time.
At one time.
And she
then,
came
we-
downstairs.
When things went a certain way, we brought her into the admin finance department, but she continued to do the work for the airport, and then they did the split in the, cost share.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's 84, 85. Some changes on 85, putting some construction cost in, some additional cost.
And that subnote says $1 million. I think it's 500,000 at that bond payment.
Right, so, yeah, so there's a couple bond payments at the bottom. We have a $300,000 that was borrowed. It's gonna be paid up in 2029. That was for runway repairs. And they are talking about getting a bond or leasing anywhere from 500,000 to $1 million to possibly do some roof repairs. Probably more likely on the 500 side, based on a commission.
It'll probably be 500,000.
Yeah, so after the commission meeting when we talked about it, but this was worst case scenario, so we will probably adjust that before the actual budget comes out because the commission met after. So, hangar 2?
Hangar 1.
Hangar 1, east side of hangar 1. Is in disrepair. Again, we talked about fuel farm on 86 in and out, basically. Line 737 is the Commerce Park side. She does have some additional maintenance and repairs. Obviously, there's a lot of old buildings out here and need some TLC, I guess.
What page? I'm sorry.
87, 88.
Thank you.
Again, we have 2 different repairs, so we might need to look at that and just build it into one. Again, and then on the bottom, she does have a $700,000, which was for the build out across the street, paying back on that to the township. That will expire in 2037. And that bond payment that we had talked about, those will go down and be revised to 20,000 apiece, because like I said, it's more likely gonna be the 500 and not the $1 million. Done with airport. Any questions?
And Ann, just,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there. Just, and again, for the airport, just getting involved with it for a year, what's important, and I don't mean the bottom line, is that they stick to their budget and it doesn't cost the township a dime. So some people didn't know that.
Right.
They thought that some of our money from the general fund or even the township somewhere was going to the airport, and they handle that and
Yeah.
do that each year.
It
Yeah,
is not.
good point, Joe. Actually, DPS, rec, they
Fire,
they
they
all
all
stay,
stay
fire, they all stay within their department. And also because the revenue has to be used in their department, it can't be put into general fund. So, yeah, pretty much every department that is out there stays within their department. And, you know, we don't, the general fund doesn't finance them.
Okay, DPW, I'm gonna save Derek and go over just the, we can have Derek do it or I can do it. I'm gonna continue on. So if we look at the DPW, I always call it DPW, I know Department of Public Services, budget, big monies because of big projects, big capital. It's very capital intensive. So what we do is we analyze, our water and sewer rates and refuge rates. We analyze those every year to see where they're at and how they compare and how we are being charged from GLWA for our water. It's a balance to try to do what we need to do, maintain capital between water and sewer, and have as least impact on the residents as possible. So that's how this fine instrument works in the Department of Public Services. So if we look at page 90, we are anticipating to raise rates. The meters sales have pretty much stabled out, or are they up or down a little bit?
Up a little bit last year, so we're going from 255 million gallons up to 257 in the budget, so this 251 that's in there is incorrect. It's 257.
Okay. And we're projecting a rate increase of 11.84 per gallon to 12.13 per gallon. GLWA increased our rate about $75,000. So that's page 90.
And hold on
Yep.
a second. On the budget, this number here, when you said the rate increase, wasn't this what we voted on
Yeah.
a few months ago?
Yes.
In July.
What you
No,
voted on for,
that was last July.
So, was it that long ago?
Yeah,
you
it's
adopted
July.
That's when we'll see it again this
Yeah.
July.
July. So these won't go into effect till July, August 1st.
That
Yeah.
are in effect for this year's budget.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have given us a projection for.
yeah, so,
Yes, yes. Every-
it
Yes.
has been the standing policy of the township to adjust rates based upon cost increases from GLWA. So that's all that's being proposed in this budget, is an adjustment to the water rate to accommodate the increase in rate charges from the authority. So that's where that number is coming from.
And we actually raise rates in July, every July. So is it exact? No, because we're moving into the next one.
And we
So
bill
yeah,
quarterly, and you're billing after the consumption takes place, so it's
3
not
months
always
later,
exact.
so.
So-
Yeah, July, it was July. July is when July 1st is when she implements new rates on the bill.
When GLEWA, when the Great Lakes Water Authority, I don't like saying GLEWA, feels weird, determines they're going to raise our rates, and I realize it's different for every municipality because some can afford more than others or less than others. Is there any?
No, it's a formula that they
Yeah.
have. It's
Oh, is it?
consumption. Yeah.
Distance and, you know.
Okay, so it's not something that we can push back on any harder
No,
than we have
They
been.
do talk to
Okay.
us, they do allow us to correct numbers that they have, and they, what, is it a
They're-
6-year?
Yeah,
6 years,
history of your consumption.
and,
So they base your rate increases on your total consumption, the time when the consumption occurs, your peak daily and hourly rates, your distance from the service, center, your pressures, a variety of different components. So the more you use on a, August afternoon, the higher your rates go up.
Sure.
The more you use in the middle of the night, the lower your rates can go. So, that's something I think DPS is going to be looking at. There's a reason that communities have water towers. They fill it up during the middle of the night when the peak consumption or the consumption or the tax on the system is less to GLWA, As a result, GLWA gives you a break in your rates. So there is some value in
Possibly,
consumption.
do
Some
it.
education, maybe a little community education as
No,
far as.
well, see, but it wouldn't come down to the individual. In other words, at
Sure,
the, at
if
the low part,
everybody-
he's not, that's not gonna lower. If you did all your wash at 2 a.m. at the low rate, you're not gonna see a break in your water.
Until
It-
6 years from now.
No, well, and
I mean,
it
if
would come-
everybody in Grosse Ile.
If everybody
did
in
that,
Grosse Ile,
okay.
it'd be, yes.
All right.
There you go. Yeah, but that is the formula used for every community, so ours is
Okay.
no different than anybody else's.
I think it's also important to note the composition of the board on GLEWA. It's not the old Detroit Water Board, but the representatives that are based throughout the,
Well, that was the huge change with
Exactly.
that.
you have one from, as I recall, one from the state, one from each of the counties, and then the city of Detroit, I think, has one too. So it's not just the old Detroit sewer and water system that's setting the rates. It's actually a representative of the
Counties.
counties that are doing this work.
And I remember we sat here at the last budget discussion, and I think you actually made the comment, you know, at what point does this end? It can't just continue to go up and up and up and up and up. So try to do some things creative in the DPS budget that we'll talk about here a little bit later that'll help to try to mitigate some of those increases to the residents. So we'll talk about
Okay,
that. in a second.
good.
That's what we brought up in the midterm budget, that revenues go down, the price goes up too. GLEWOP then hits us with it, so we're getting double hit sometimes. I mean, you have to
Potentially.
look at it that way, and that's what I said, we need to at least
Well, I think
review this or figure out
And then if usage goes down, your rates are gonna go up because we
That-
have to maintain a level of service.
of revenue.
Yes.
Well, that's
Yeah.
exactly what
That's-
I-
Yeah, yeah.
What I was explaining at the midterm thing, that we would talk, and I would hope at least we could do something.
We'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
I feel like it's a water monopoly.
It is.
It's a real shame.
Okay, page 91, actually, our rates for sewer are staying stable. We're gonna keep those at the 442 per 1,000 gallons. You're gonna see previous year resources being used because of the capital intensive in the wastewater treatment plant, and we'll show you that, of why that was necessary. Okay, 92.
Sorry, Ann, I got a question from 90. The line 645, the rate increase from 1184 to 1213. That's based on 10,000 gallons?
1,000
1,000
gallons.
gallons.
1,000 gallons?
That's a unit.
Okay,
And the same thing with the sewer, 1,000 gallons.
Roger.
And then, so 92, what he was talking about, 92 is our refuse. Obviously, we want refuse to not, we were starting to accumulate a fund balance of like $120,000, which we don't want that. We just want it to break even. Whatever it costs us for trash, that's what we want to charge the residents. We're not here to make money on refuse. So what he said is he actually reduced the refuse charge to reflect the increase in the water charge, because it's all the same bill. So try to negate the effect of the water increase on the taxpayer.
So you see the
or the
difference of
user.
$78,482. That's similar or close in the number to the increase in the water charge, and they're all on the same bill. So, you know, you have winners and losers depending upon how much water you use, but overall, the reduction in the revenue from the refuse will balance out the increase in cost from the water.
Yet we'll still have to talk about an increase in water. I mean, but understanding the full
Right.
picture, it's,
Right.
Sure.
the impact is not the same as the increase.
Right, exactly. And then we'll draw on some retained earnings to the tune of 48,000. She's got about 120,000 in the bank. So the chipping that we're doing is gonna come out of some of that fund balance. So, you know, I think we should still be in pretty good shape after all this is said and done in fund balance.
Yep.
For that account, so. Trying to think outside the box in order to mitigate that cost increase to the resident.
Yeah, I appreciate
we were
that.
talking about at the midterm. Thank you.
So 93 is the water side. Again, here we do that 70-30 split between water and sewer. Basically, the guys spend more time on the water side than they do the sewer side. So we have 4 employees, 1/2 a manager, and 8 retired employees coming out of Department of Public Services within the 94, there's that water increase. So on 927, on page 94, that's how much we're spending for water. And that's at $75,000, that was more. Um, 95 are those bond issues that I have listed on those other pages. So you can see this is the water side of it. So that's almost $1 million in bond payments still coming out of the water side for the water mains. So we got, and those different water mains are listed. And those will be coming off 25, 26, 36, and 40. And those are millions of dollars that have been spent on water mains over the past 20 years. Page 96 is the sewer.
Actually, and I want to go back real
Sure.
quickly because I want to point something out. You had mentioned the capital intensive nature of the DPS department, and I know that there has been questions about how the township manages its assets and how it plans for capital improvements and how it does its assessment of its assets and its criticality of the assets and which ones you replace first and how much longevity is left on each one and the potential cost. If you see under 821 on page 93, water asset management plan, so we're actually required by the state to have a water asset management plan which determines or it reviews the condition of our assets, how much longevity is left on them, how critical they are to the system, and then to prioritize capital improvements on a schedule moving forward with cost and revenue projections as far as what's necessary to satisfy those costs. So we do have in the budget not only the state mandated asset management plan for the water system in here, which will take about a year to complete. It's actually already started, and we've actually incurred some costs this fiscal year for that budgeted cost. We also have it for the sanitary sewer system, which is listed and has been listed the past 4 years, and we're getting to the conclusion of that asset management plan. And then that asset management plan for the sewer and for the water will be used to schedule capital improvements now and for the next 20 years. So those are all either in process or getting close to completion, which will then flow into these budgets in a seamless nature, so you'll know exactly how much each year you need to balance or how much each year you need to put in the budget to achieve that schedule. So just wanted to mention that.
That's really helpful. Thanks for pointing that out, Derek. And well, I've seen this. I think each department has its own ways of managing capital improvements and how they want to do things. So for me, like seeing that picture together would be helpful. And it's good to hear from you that in the future that will be budgeted out and you all will be planning for that maintenance going forward.
All of the departments, I'm pretty sure all of the departments have a capital improvement schedule. So they're not sitting there and, oh, we need a new car this year. They knew last year that they'd need it. And and they have it for a number of years. DPS has always had.
And some are more formal than
So,
others. DPS
yeah.
is put together professionally by an engineering company at, the cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Others are a little less formal than that.
But they all have them, and so they all are on somewhat on top of what they want to do. We would actually like to see what's going on mandated here with these could benefit the whole township, but it's a time thing.
Okay. 96, page 96. Again, you can see 932. So you're spending 345 just on maintenance and that asset management plan. Yep, so again, on, 96, we're spending $345,000 on televising and cleaning mains, so now we're on the sewer side, $150,000, as well as the asset management plan of $190,000. This is annually, it's not, these continue. Page 97, again, now we're talking on the sewer side of bonds. So, there's another $400,000 on the sewer side, for just bond payments for the sewer portions that have been redone over the last 20 years. Okay, page 98. This is the sewer treatment plant. You can see the real portion is this capital outlay, what needs to be done. This will drive your sewer rates because it depends on how much needs to be done, how much capital needs to be done. This may all be in here this year. It may or may not get done, may not get done next year, but it is the plan to have all these things done. And then at the bottom of 995, that is their ACO, that all the improvements that we just bonded at the wastewater treatment plant, that is the bond expense for that.
So instead of complicating the budget with the ACO work that's gonna happen in this operational budget, because you would see like $8.5 million coming in on a revenue from a bond, and then $8.5 million going out on an expenditure, we've reduced it simply to what the bond expenses for that work. If you recall, the millage that was passed by the electorate this past fall, that was for a delayed levy until I think 2025. So we're carrying in the operational budget the bond payments until that point when that levy comes in and pays those bond amounts. At that point, those bond payments will go into like page 97 and be allocated against millage revenue. But in the meantime, between now and when that levy occurs, we're carrying it on the sewer side, so.
When we do get bond money in, it is accounted for in a capital improvement fund, so that bond money is spent for those projects. We can't take bond money and put it somewhere else. Those debt payments are paid out of that debt fund. So we ensure that those bonds have covenants, they have to be spent where they should. There's all kinds of rules and compliance that need to be done. So we do keep that counted for in a separate fund. So they're not within the budget, but they are available, and that's how we account for them. But yet we didn't want to put it in this budget. So at the end of the year, if you actually look at our financial statements, it takes 5 funds for the Department of Public Service. The numbers are outrageous, and it puts everything together, and it's one fund because it's treated as an enterprise. The bonds are included within the enterprise fund. It works in conjunction, but we can't spend, and make it very clear that we don't spend bond money on things that shouldn't be used for. Very specific when you sell a bond, how those monies are spent. Okay, now refuse.
99 or?
Yep. So 99, the only thing different I did there is instead of taking all the benefits, I just added of all the people for 5%. It wasn't even, just took that out of the equation and just had a portion of the billing clerk within the refuse department. She's the one that answers all the, guys aren't working on the refuse. It's her getting phone calls and the disposal. So it just made more sense to just put a little bit of portion of her salary in there, and then took out all the benefits. It wasn't even.
So the glass hauling happens every 3 weeks. Is that pretty much a full container when they haul it away?
It's just estimated, yeah. That's a budgetary estimate, so it's
Okay.
not an actual
So it's only
schedule.
hauled when it's
Right.
Okay.
It's estimated for the budget number every 3 weeks.
I was kind of trying to gauge what's the return on investment? How used is it?
I guess the return on investment would be I guess you'd have to gauge that on what the residents feel its benefit is.
That might not be the right term.
Right.
Yeah.
It's used significantly.
It is filled up.
Right.
Okay.
It was
What
actually
we don't know is how many people use it.
Right. Could be one guy.
It could be.
One guy with 1,000 bottles? Or
Yeah.
With a real, one dude with a real problem.
It's all ex-board members.
It does receive
It's good,
quite a bit
though.
of use,
Okay.
and the returns from the residents have been all positive.
Okay.
You know, so-
Good.
And I think, Derek, I mean, I know when that thing gets filled up or it's not there, people complain pretty quickly, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're
people are
right.
using it pretty, I think, pretty,
It's actually full right now. They're coming to pick it up tomorrow, so it gets used. You know.
Yeah, I think recycling's important, so if people are using it, we should keep doing it, so.
And just this is a little side note, but the reason this is handled this way is because without this arrangement, glass was going to be cut from the single stream collection because it had no value unless it was, or I'm sorry, the commingled collection, because it had no value as a commingled recyclable because the cost to separate it was greater than the value of the glass. So the only way that it made sense and we could maintain glass pickup was if we did a single stream like we're doing here. So it really was, you know, trying to make sure the residents had an option for their glass rather than just saying put it in the garbage. So.
Okay.
Well, and again, putting it in the garbage then would increase the amount of garbage that we have to carry, so it's all kind of a cycle.
Which would actually bring our price down.
Yeah?
So, but, yeah.
According to water theory.
I mean, I'll say, I mean, I don't know the actual numbers, but because it's single source, I'll bet more glass gets recycled than with our, you know, just our general recycling. I'll bet you, I don't know what the numbers are in terms of the actual glass that gets recycled, but I'll bet you a lot more.
Well,
a lot
yeah,
more of that gets recycled than-
pretty much all of that glass does get recycled.
Yeah, I think probably 100% of the glass that goes to the recycler gets processed, whereas maybe 15 or 20% of the
Yeah.
commingled recyclables actually
That-
gets used.
And that is the sad part of that pickup, is that, you know, about 85% of it's gonna end up back in the dump, but it's gonna take longer to get there.
Right, we're almost done. Page 100 is the Brownfield Authority. Basically, it collects recapture. It's the area in the airport. It only captures about $10,000. It can be only used for asbestos demolition. So there's about $124,000 in the account.
And that can only be used in this airport area here,
Or demolition. It has to be asbestos. It's very,
within the Brownfield district, which
Yeah.
is the airport.
Gotcha.
No, it's similar to the DDA in
Yep.
the way that the TIF works.
yeah. And then we're off to the DDA.
They
So-
didn't itemize anything?
Where?
Page.
Oh, I see. All right. I was like, wow. Like, sweet.
So the DDA, they get a capture of about 152,000. That's for all down Macomb Street. They also get a pilot tax, which is in lieu of taxes, and that's from the senior housing. So that's based on rents. There's a calculation for that. And then they bringing over about $200,000. Page 103, we just, for salaries, it's a portion of Ross's, time. It's a portion of his salary. And then we have professional services, some maintenance, the flower, and then again, capital improvements. Obviously, people have seen a lot of capital improvements going on down there. He's got more budgeted. And
Just a quick side note that
Yeah.
I know there was some reservation potentially about the combination of the community development director and then the DDA director positions. And I only mention it because that's where that budget line item is coming from, for salaries. I personally and professionally think that combination of those two positions is working out really well. And I want to take this opportunity to let you guys know that because I know that there was some concern about it. It was a new position, but I think the synergy between community development and DDA has been one that's been very positive. So, and so I think that's worked out really well, and I wanted to make you aware of that.
Yeah, and Yeah, and I'll certainly second that because I've worked closely with Ross, and that was absolutely, I think, the right thing to do. It is working out well all the way around because not only in DDA and community development really are the same thing. I mean, have a lot in common, and you have that one person who knows them both, where we didn't have that before, and it's helped a lot.
Just quickly on the budget, I know we're going down from last year's budget, but I saw in the actuals we spent more on DDA. Is that part of why that's
Yep,
going down?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I guess another question on that, we're taking with the carry. What's the carryover on this? We're taking from that, right, for next year? Or,
Yeah,
And that's just things that they've accumulated over time.
that's right. Yep.
Yeah, DDA is heavy into the art, they're
Yes.
in the middle of their project with art on Macomb. They have planned 3 more murals this year, and I believe 6 more sculptures.
Now we just need a brewery.
Yeah. Yeah. So that amount varies. There'll be years that, they weren't doing anything and that was just sitting there. So that's what it's there for.
Gotcha.
That is it. I just want to take the time to, this was actually a pretty easy budget. Everyone did a great job. Everyone is conservative. All the managers did a great job. It was surprising with the revenues that I thought it would be a lot worse, and I was very pleased with how it turned out.
Yeah, this actually was a very good budget year. Even our deficit wasn't what we thought it would be for this year with the retirements and everything that ended up in it. And this budget came together very nicely. Any questions of Ann right now?
Just a comment if I may, and I know you say our budget's 90% people, and I get why you say that for a lot of different reasons. I mean, the people who run things, that's probably one of the more unpredictable costs that I've seen. And I've noted, obviously our capital improvement stuff is huge. I mean, just looking at the millages, I think I got, just counting out the capital improvement millages, 34% of our millages are capital improvements. And then even within the operating expenses, we're budgeting for capital improvements. So, I know every department's doing it on its own way, but for me, seeing an overall picture of those capital improvements, I know would be helpful. I don't know if we'll get there, obviously, in a month or so. Another reason why I'm looking at that is, as we're looking at master plan, some of the grants do require that kind of overall capital improvement plan. And I know that just would be helpful for me as I'm looking at these sorts of numbers. So I just wanted to say that out loud.
Anything else? Okay, then what I'd like to do now is go to the comment portion of this, and then we will take a break. If there aren't any comments, if you're just going to wait for the question and answer. But we do have, I think. Hi, Bob.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I don't want to give the impression. Bob Z. Blauvelt. I don't want to give the impression that I didn't appreciate your attempt in what you did today. But I would like to make a couple points. First point is, I support and thank Mr. Yeager for what he said at the opening. He's 100% on. We sat and listened to verbiage, but we had nothing to reference to. Second point, just because this is the way we did it in the past doesn't make it right. We have a lot of room here for continuous improvement. 3, this is really not what I expected, and I don't think some of the people in the audience did. This is not what was reflected in the comments that were made from the board on how we were going to do this. nor from the comments that were made from the people in the audience. Point 4, I got 2 giant screens here that could have been utilized to help reference what you people were talking about. And I'm sure this audience would have appreciated it, and the audience out on TV. Point number 5, this was not representative of Grosse Ile. I've seen our neighboring communities do this, and I'm going to be very honest with you, they do a much better job than we do. Again, I thank you for your time. Looking forward to the questions.
Kathy.
Kathy Walker, Thorpe Court. We got 7 pages here. You guys have over 100. I've got a background, as you all know, in finance and budgeting, $500 million budgets I used to do. I couldn't follow this. If I can't follow this, how can the public follow this? And people want to know. Jameson was right. We should have had something. And to say if things were done, you know, if there wasn't we should have had a visual thing. But to say you used to do this for all those years, it's not 1996 anymore. You have computers. I know a lot of people are uncomfortable with electronics. But if you are uncomfortable, you shouldn't be in the seat. No offense. Everybody's got, and my husband was terrible. He was awful at it, but I beat on him. You have to get up to speed. We have to understand what's going on. I couldn't follow a damn thing, and I'm really sorry for that, because I wasted a couple hours of my time, and everybody watching did too, and that's a shame, because this is important stuff. We all pay our taxes. We all want to know what's going on, and I'm very discouraged and disappointed. A lot of things have changed. Salaries have changed since 1996, but we're getting the same kind of presentation. I don't believe that's accurate. Thank you.
Flavin, Parke Lane. I'd like to thank Jameson for pointing out that we do not have the public and the folks here at the meeting and the public, we do not have a copy of any of the information that Ann worked from tonight. And, you know, I think about, again, I agree with Mr. Zelasko and Ms. Walker. I don't understand why we couldn't have a PowerPoint, why we would not have a PowerPoint or a handout. I believe that the budget is put together with line items, so there has to be something that the public could work with. And I scratch my head and wonder, you know, the question I ask myself is, why would, and I believe that the supervisor is, your job is putting together the budget.
To present the budget to the board.
Present the budget. Well, when you present the budget, why wouldn't we get in, you know, have a PowerPoint for the community?
Well, and I'll be honest. I mean, we just didn't think about a PowerPoint because this is the way it has been done. We just didn't think about it. It's not that you don't have a good point. You do have a good point, and as I said to Jameson, we can talk about this. But this is not 96. This is 2021. This is exactly how we did it in 2020 and every year. And it doesn't mean that we can't change. We didn't think about changing this year.
Well, I think that this was brought up last year, and when this was brought up that when the budget wasn't presented when it was supposed to be presented, and I don't think the budget was voted on before you had a hearing last year.
PowerPoint was last year, and it was a PowerPoint, and it was done before the meeting. So this was actually normally a study session, that we made the public hearing way ahead of time, and the budget will be presented would be our official public hearing with a PowerPoint before the meeting that it's adopted. So we were actually going out of our way to do this whole thing. There was a PowerPoint. I do a PowerPoint every year before the budget is adopted. That's really our public hearing. We were actually doing more by having the study session.
What they're saying, I understand what
Yeah,
they're
that's
saying,
fine.
is,
I just-
is take, you know, this, what we went through today, put that out there. That's what they're saying.
So
And
next year, will you have something prepared for whatever you're calling this meeting? The 2 hours and 20 minutes of you talking?
Absolutely, if that's.
Yeah, that's what the
absolutely.
hearing is. Hearing session, whatever you want to call it. That's what it is. We will, you know, based on the comments today, we will look into it and see what we can do.
Because I mean, the public, if they're not sleeping, how can they follow this? I mean, I can't follow it without numbers. And so next year, I hope we're not talking about this next year.
Yeah, and you know, it was just that we just didn't think about doing it a different way. That's
For
plain and
27
simple.
years, though.
Well, I'm sorry, I haven't been here 27 years. In the years I've been here, this has worked.
It was a study session
Yeah,
with the
well,
board. This was truly a study session for the board.
The budget is for the board. The
We'll do a
hearing,
public
the
hearing.
hearing is for the people to hear what we're doing.
So let me repeat that.
Okay.
The budget is for the board.
Yes, for the
And the
township.
board is for the taxpayers, right? So if you.
I understand
That
how you're
logic
going to
is,
weave this in.
the logic is taxpayers are the bosses, the board works for the
Taxpayers are not-
taxpayers.
I would disagree with that. The taxpayers elect us to do our job. Our
And
job. And
the taxpayer-
I'm saying, long story short here, we will look into doing it differently.
Will you commit to doing something different
I
next
will
year?
look, we will commit to looking into it because I don't know cost-wise and availability of being able to do it. I don't know what that is going to be. But yeah, I think we can do it different.
Maybe we should elect somebody that commits to doing it differently. So, thank you.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Greg Karmazin, taxpayer, homeowner, 21228 East River. Just wanted to thank the board for having this meeting tonight. I think this was a real step forward. This is real progress. I think that I've spoken here before on behalf of the Grosse Ile Taxpayer Association and Grosse Ile Civic Issue Association, and for years, this is exactly what we've been calling for. So I really give you credit for doing what you did tonight. Okay, this was progress. However, I think that you've heard from a number of the citizens here in attendance that it could be perhaps done a little differently, and so that the audience and people watching on TV could follow it more closely, and I agree with that. I think that there's really no valid reason for not providing the public with the same information that you all have to make these decisions on the budget. And in fact, I submitted on behalf of the Taxpayers Association last week a FOIA request, a Freedom of Information Act request, for the very documents that you have in front of you. And hopefully that'll be provided to us, and we'd be glad to put it out in public domain on the Grosse Ile Civic Issues page. And in fact, with the summary budget, which you have submitted or given to the public, we actually did put that out on the Grosse Ile Civic Issues Facebook page. So that is available for the public to see. And unfortunately, it's not on the township's website, not on the township's Facebook page, but you could put it there too. But I think the more transparency, the more information that's provided the public, the better. The more that you'll, in fact, find feedback from citizens about and this is really a comment still, but I think there'll be a question on this. The police department's total personnel at 23 is what I believe I heard was budgeted, and I think what we've established as a benchmark in the community is 24, with the road patrols having 12 personnel for road patrols. So you have 3 shifts, or three cars rather, on all shifts. And I think that's critically important. And I think as you think about priorities, obviously there's some difficult choices you got to make, but public safety is number one. I think most Islanders agree that it is, and having those 3 patrols on all shifts is critically important. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Just as a note, when I started here, my first term, we actually got the budget in about a half-hour study session. We'd come back into the board meeting, and we'd be voting on the budget. It took. And I was behind. I said, it's not enough time. You can't even formulate a question in that short a period of time, let alone change anything. And I believe it was our last year before we took over here this term that they finally did it like a week or so before. We're trying to get it this is a couple weeks before, so that there is time to think about it. And with the comments that were made today, we're going to try and do something different. The young man, Mr. Heil. Are you going to have a statue, some kind of statue joke? Go ahead, Bill.
Before you put the time on me, I got to tell a story because of what you said. Brooks Patterson was the I forgot his title. He was the head man of Oakland County, like Warren Evans. And somebody was mad about some issue that he was going on, and a number of people, everybody liked Brooks, started criticizing this man for his comments. And he basically, on radio or somewhere, said, "Holy smokes, look at all the praise this man gets. I think this job he's doing isn't worth anything." Before you know it, they're going to raise a statue for him that's 900 feet tall. And then they went and confronted Brooks Patterson. He says, "Oh, no, that's ridiculous. I couldn't tolerate that. Maybe 400 feet. I just had to tell that story. I'd like to make a suggestion on how reporting of the budget might take place and better develop an opportunity for understanding and making decisions, making it a working tool. Munitrix, when it was available, was sort of like what I'm talking about, but I think that you could probably get a mental picture if I try a little harder here. You need to know where you were last year and where you are this coming year. But isn't a bad idea to also see how do we compare with other communities. I sort of learned this when I worked at Cadillac Motor Car Division. The company had, I was in dealer organization, they had a standard for what would be normal and good and proper. The cost of new car reconditioning as a percentage of the cost of the car would be, I'm going to pull a number off my head, just 4%. I'm making up a number. Well, what if it comes in at 6%? Why is it always at 6%? Are they wasting something? Are they not doing their purchasing right? If it's a little bit lower, what can we learn from it? Is the quality of it down or isn't it there? And sometimes the situations are just different. I mean, some guy might be very skilled at it. There's reasons for a variance. But it gives you a chance to see how you compare to a standard with this technique I'm talking about. And also an opportunity to see how you're going this year versus another year. And you can use that to compare with what you need for the future for the sewers or for the drainage or for the pipes or the roads or whatever. When all of that's right in front of you and you have a graph, you have either a bar graph or a moving line and some idea of where you're at, you're better prepared to know where you're at and what the consequences of your decision will be. I wanted to share that thought, Jim.
Thank you, Bill. Other comments? Yes, sir.
Ray Geist, Elbamar Drive. I don't want to repeat a lot of what's been said already. You know, first off, I came here for an education tonight, and what I got wasn't exactly what I expected. But I concur with everybody that's spoken so far, and with Trustee Yeager, is that the lack of visuals was quite disappointing and made it very difficult to follow along. In fact, I'm pretty confident that all of you had to depend upon the reports in front of you to be able to fully understand what was going on. And while I'm not necessarily sure a PowerPoint is needed for this process, I understand the one that was done last year. It's kind of a summary, but to do the detail, maybe the overhead could have been used to go through the pages. But if nothing else, create a PDF of that report. It can be posted online on the website as proposed. You can scroll through it as the presentation goes on, so everybody in attendance and online can see it and follow along with the discussion that goes with it. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Am I missing anybody back there? All right. With that, that ends the comment portion. We're going to take a little 5-minute break and then come back with a question and answer. end the formal meeting, and any board members that wish to leave can do so, and we will continue on with the question and answer. So I would
Move to adjourn the meeting.
thank you.
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Any board members that wish to leave may leave. And with that, we'll go into the questions and answers. And again, you come up, you ask your question. The group will answer them. Someone will answer. I answer them if we can, and if we can't, we'll get you the answer. And again, that'll be it. It's not going to be a discussion of anything. It's not going to be a debate of anything. It's a question and answer. So, all right, we'll wait for Carl. I didn't ask for anybody to come up yet, please.
I thought you just said you were.
No, I'm just waiting to get everything settled. Why don't you just sit, just,
This part
okay.
of the meeting be recorded?
Yeah, everything's still going. You all set? Yes. All right, sir. Who has a question? And these are limited to budget questions for this year.
I wasn't going to ask you about sports.
Darn.
So,
He had a Red Wing update.
so this part of the meeting, part of the hearing is recorded.
Yes, it's
And
going out right now.
The community, part of what the hearing means is that the community gets to be heard, correct?
That was the comment part
Oh.
of the hearing. This is because you guys asked for this, we're doing this.
Oh, I thought this was part of what the Michigan law said.
You're getting to do it, so do it, please. You have 3
Uh,
minutes up there, so,
3 minutes worth of questions.
no, 3 minutes of your time up there.
Well, you didn't specify that the questions would be limited to 3 minutes.
Well, we will try, if it takes longer to answer that question, we'll do it, but we want everybody to get a chance. We don't want,
Absolutely,
somebody up
absolutely.
there with 12 questions.
So, my question is, did the township use a line item budget to develop the budget summary showing revenues by source and expenditures by activity level that was provided to the public was it provided to the public prior to this public hearing? And if so, when will the copy of this line item budget be provided?
It's not, okay, and it's not a line item budget. It is the summary budget, the four pages. That is the budget. That is Grosse Ile's budget. That's what gets approved. These
So
are our work papers.
So you don't want the community to get the line item?
No, I
budget?
didn't say that. I'm just explaining to you what the budget is. The budget is the summary.
I understand
Okay.
that the budget,
And
the budget is defined in multiple ways, and what you're talking about is one way that the budget is defined. I'm talking about the line item budget that you or Ann builds her summary
Well, actually,
out
the
of.
departments build it. Yes, but yeah, that is our work papers, and
Okay.
you can go into it.
When will that be provided to the public?
Once it's approved by the township board. Once the budget's approved, then I'll have the line budget on the,
So the community won't have any idea how you're spending their money line by line.
Well, I think the community is allowed to have the budget, whatever that is. I don't know if
Yeah.
this or whatever,
It was out there.
6 days prior to
Correct.
our adoption of
Correct.
it.
Where is it?
And didn't you have copies of it?
yes, they were available.
Where-
Not the line budget, the other
That's
budget.
what I'm
was-
asking
right.
for specifically.
What happens is once we go before the board, we'll do another public hearing, I'll present it on a thing, we'll have the final document that the board's gonna approve, and we will have those books available.
So I guess what I'm trying to make clear is that the public is not going to understand or have anything written down prior to the day that you're going to vote on it. The board's going to vote on it.
Whatever the board's wishes are, that's,
Well, I'm asking for the public that the line item budget, which historically you have put out there, that it's put out ahead of time so that the public can review it.
they adopt it, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, not the day before.
So all this is generated out of something, right? Some electronic system, which means you could generate it as a PDF and we could host it on the website, right?
Whatever you guys wish, yes. Whatever. It's right now, it's Excel documents.
Right, and you have to take into account that from today until we adopt
not
it,
adopted.
things could change.
Sure.
It's a draft. It's a draft budget.
Yes,
Right.
it's a draft. So,
Correct.
just so you know that.
I understand that.
So let's print a PDF, the Excel workbook, superimpose a watermark that says draft, and see if we can maybe get it hosted on one of our
Yeah, that's fine.
servers.
Is that, there we go.
So and I think the state law says that you have to do that 6 days.
No, that is the budget, not what you're talking about. You're talking about the work papers. That 100 and some pages is work papers. That is not the budget. The budget is the 4.
I understand exactly what the budget is and
Okay.
what the work papers are.
Okay.
I'm asking you to publish the work
And
papers.
we said we'll be able to do that.
You'll put them online.
That's
Awesome.
what.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's
That-
what
that-
we're-
because that didn't happen last year.
As
Last
long
year, I don't think we received that stuff until, well, I don't know, you came back from
Last
vacation.
year, I believe
They
it
were
was-
down there and no
it
one
was
asked
down
for
there
it.
and nobody picked anything up.
Well, part of the job of a supervisor is to help the community find out where they can find information.
Well, and
if
they were
it's- if
told.
it's
They were
printed-
told, and
If
they
it's
didn't.
printed and/or available online, that's very helpful.
Yeah,
So,
but the actual book, the nice books will not be done until before the
just-
board meeting, because
there
we're gonna
has to be
still
a
make
place
some
for the public
adjustments.
to be able to access
Yep.
how you're spending their money.
Yes.
Number 2, where is the budget in the proposed allocation of the approximately $1 million of COVID money, the relief grant funding that the township received from the state of Michigan and the federal government? And I think that you mentioned that in the meeting, that you have set that aside in a different area. So how much
It's an
of
escrow account.
this funding has been expended to date? And when did the township board vote on the allocation of the money that has been spent?
90,000 of it was spent in the fire department.
Did the budget?
And that was part of last year's budget that was approved. I
And
think the only other,
23,000 was overtime to the police department for when people were off on COVID, and $13,000 was spent on an AC emergency unit.
And
That's
all of
what's
those,
spent,
all of those have been,
accounted for in that fund, and we have 900 and,
have all of them been voted on?
those that require a vote, yes. Yep.
And when you spend money on a emergency, do you come back and how does the board vote or
After
acknowledge
the
that?
fact, they're not required to under our policy.
No, they're
and the remaining balance is 951,000.
And, okay, thank you.
Just
Um,
quick, the 90,000 for the fire department you took out though in this budget, right?
2 years ago,
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, well,
or yeah, last year.
This year's current
Right,
budget.
yes.
Yep.
So, question number 4, or 3. According to the Michigan Department of Treasury website, Grosse Ile Township has a higher unfunded pension liability per capita than almost every other township in Michigan. Question is, why is Grosse Ile, why is our unfunded pension liability per capita so much higher than other townships, and what is being done to address this situation?
We have done many things. We've changed benefits.
first of all, the unfunded per capita,
Right, we're 10,000
I don't know what that
people.
really stands for, because we pay, the township pays what it is told to pay every year. We've never missed a payment.
We always pay what they
It's
tell
the
us.
understanding of, and I'm not sure everybody understands what unfunded means, But actually, defined benefit plans are supposed to be unfunded, a portion. Because you could fully fund today and tomorrow you could be underfunded because of the fluctuation.
You guys say that all the time, but the point is, let's look at the numbers.
But I don't know what your
the cost. I asked Ann this.
Yes.
The cost for MERS this year is $1.7 million roughly.
Yep.
785, and the healthcare is 1.5 million.
Yep.
And then I asked if our MERS and healthcare were fully funded, what would it cost us this year?
I think I gave you
And
those
I said,
numbers.
you said
Yes.
$478,000 for MERS
Yep,
and $900,000 for healthcare.
that's correct, based off the actuary.
All right. So as part of the budget, what is the percentage that we're paying in catch-up for
It's,
MERS and healthcare?
it's.
About
50
1.9?
Yeah, what did I say? Whatever the.
About
thing is,
I have
those.
1.9.
The difference?
That's what our catch-up is.
Our catch-up is, whatever, let me see.
Roughly 1.9 million. And not to get lost in the detail of the number, the question is, so if you use last year's budget total for the general fund, that's about almost 29% of our budget is going to cover unfunded liability.
It's true.
And that's where it becomes a big issue, because $1.9 million, that would pay for a lot of things.
I'm gonna give you a copy that I gave the board. This is based on an actuarial, so it's not me.
No, it's our actuarial.
It's
though.
your actuarial,
The
that's correct.
township's
So
actuarial.
if,
Which is MERS.
right, which is MERS. It's
MERS
MERS.
is the actuary.
MERS
Does the
does the
actuarial.
actuary.
We don't do the actuarial.
So MERS,
They do it on our behalf. And
Every
you- I-
community
and I
figures out
believe
our
our,
cost.
I believe that our accountants, or Yo and Yo,
Yes?
I believe that they review that. So-
absolutely.
Okay.
So just in your respect, when you say we're unfunded, why did they tell me my required contribution actually went down?
Probably because the stock market was up significantly in January.
Exactly, but I pay exactly what they tell me. And
Okay.
they don't know the future either.
So here's the point. I understand your point, and I appreciate that. But what I'm saying to you is, it's costing the township 1.9 million because we are underfunded. And if we weren't underfunded, we're probably I think we're 103 or 104 as far as funding goes. I think it's 104. I think there are 104 townships, so we are at 103. So we're almost one of the lowest. We have one of the lowest. We're only funded 64%.
To answer your question, though, that you originally posed about townships and where we rank with regards to other townships in the state of Michigan. Number one, Grosse Ile Township is an older township, so we have liabilities that extend potentially farther than other communities, which maybe are townships that are newer. Brownstown is a good example. Brownstown has been building out. Grosse Ile has been built out for quite some time. It's a growing community. They have less unfunded liabilities as far as age of those liabilities are concerned. So, and you're comparing us to communities that might be in northern Michigan that might have a very small employment group. They might have a very small set of unfunded
I understand what you're saying,
That was the
Derek.
question.
I don't
though,
mean,
wanted to
I'm sorry
answer.
to interrupt you, but what I'm saying is, this is an issue that has gone on and on and
You're right,
on.
because liabilities
They're not gonna
have,
go away.
have gone on and on and on.
Right,
And those
so-
liabilities are tied to benefits.
There
And those
are.
benefits are something that we always work on through our collective bargaining agreements. So in the most recent police contract, we were able to receive concessions relative to COLA, which drives unfunded liabilities. We're also able to receive concessions when it came to how the FACs are calculated. But
Derek, let me stop you because I have 3 minutes.
I'm answering your question, though.
No, you're not.
I think I
not-
am. That was a
You
question
feel that
had.
you are.
Okay.
My point is, we have a $2 million every year, and every year that's going to go up. So each year that amount goes up.
But your question,
No,
with all due respect.
please don't stop.
Your question was, I'm not taking your time. Your question was, what is the township doing to reduce unfunded liabilities? I'm trying to answer your question.
No, I have, my point, please let me make my point.
Okay.
My point is, each year, Is this a sustainable number? Each year that's going to go up as the unfunded liability goes up. How are we going to sustain that as a township and pay for that? Every time that goes up, that cuts into something else we can use it for. So here we are spending $7 million on roads that we don't own, and we have an unfunded liability of $14 million that's costing us $2 million a year. Eventually, that's going to cut into what we're able to do.
And eventually it will fall off. If you look at the actuarial, people are going to die. The benefits are going to die. It's not going to happen tomorrow. This didn't create in the day. It's not going to go away after a day. And if you look at the actuarial report, it does fall off.
I think we're speaking the same language here.
But-
I think so.
I want to make it very clear that this is an issue that has not been.
Well, I
looked at
disagree
enough.
with that.
I disagree too.
We recognize that there is a difference between where we're at and where we would like to be. 100% funded, right, is where we aspire to for all the reasons that you gave. But it's not an overnight change in your benefit levels, because you can't get that through the union negotiation process. The liabilities are driven by the benefits. The benefits don't change overnight, and those benefits, which drive the liabilities, have been accumulated over a long period of time.
That's fine.
Yeah.
One more thing. There was a
a
point.
And we're getting off of
Wait, but there was a
budget
point in
questions.
time when we actually funded an additional $1 million for like 3 or 4 years, and you know what happened? Our unfunded liability went up. So why are we throwing good money?
You have said that in the past. That's not an accurate statement. You can use numbers. You can use numbers.
I'll give you the reports. I don't know what to tell
What's the book we
you.
all used in school that, numbers can lie? And you can, so what I'm asking for is take a look at other communities that have a situation similar to ours. And they have in fact, look at the city of Cadillac. They have won awards for their budget presentations, and they have won awards for how they explain the situation to the community. There is no explanation in our budget. I mean, there's nothing in there, there's no verbiage that says, here, township residents, here's how to understand this, here's what this is about, this is what we're doing. I don't see that anywhere.
You have letters from the state that's saying, do what you're doing, because there's nothing else we can do. The state is okay with us.
There are other things you can do, but we've been doing the same thing for 27 years, so that's okay.
Well,
And if we go with that, I would have come here on a horse and buggy, and the airport would be, well, we'd have a balloon. So,
I just
thank
want to finish up just to make my point. The township recognizes that unfunded liabilities are something we need to pay attention to, and we, through the union negotiations, work to try to reduce those liabilities, because that's where the liabilities are generated, from the pension benefits that are allocated and have been allocated over years. So we work to try to reduce that.
Other communities have tried other things. They've gone to
Defined contribution
defined
plans.
contributions. Some of them have had to go back. I understand all of that. This is a situation where we need a community that understands and is involved and as asked to participate in what they're going to do here. And I don't see that happening. I don't see a dialogue with the community in your budget document. Your budget document is very difficult to understand if you're not an accountant. Let's get it written down in paper and say, and you, both of you guys have the opportunity to do this, where take a leadership role and tell the community what's going on and what the problem is. And you too, Mr. Budney, as the leader, and Mr. Nadu as
the whole board.
treasurer.
The whole board.
Well, no, you two.
The whole board.
You two are
No,
elected. You two
sir,
are elected to be. You're by
We're all
statute.
elected.
By statute, you are permitted. Your job is by statute to put the budget together.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have.
But
a
we're
leadership-
talking, but we're not
you have a
talking about the
leadership-
budget here.
You have a leadership obligation to
Put the budget together.
to.
To put the budget together.
You have an obligation to explain the budget to the public. You don't. You have, how long
We
have you
just
been
did.
here? You have been here 3 years. You have not had one opportunity where you have had a question and answer session other than this one
Well,
with the community.
And you're the reason why.
I am the reason why. So people that ask questions.
No, it's how you ask them, sir. You are
Who don't
very,
like-
you are very condescending. You are, and I know you don't like me, and I don't know why you don't like me.
You don't tell the truth.
Well, but I've offered so many times for you to come down and talk to
I
me.
don't want to come down and talk to you.
Exactly.
And you know
Exactly.
why?
And that's
Because
why we're
you
going to
have
move
never
on.
given me a
That's why
straight
we're going to
answer.
move on.
You've
Thank
never
you. Your
given me a
time is
straight
up.
answer,
Your
sir.
time is up.
Can
Your
we move
time
on
is
with
up.
the budget?
We're going to move on with the budget,
The
sir.
reason.
We're going to move on with the budget.
Because
We're going to move on with the
I'm telling
budget.
the
Please
truth.
take
I'm
a seat.
telling the truth, so you're cutting me off.
No, I'm asking you to sit down. Next.
Can I say something on the pensions? So that was a tough conversation about an important point, I feel. And just to list out some of what you referenced, Mr. Flavin, I believe it's the MI Community Financials website that has Grosse Ile at 103 out of 104 townships in 2021. I've asked about this and I've looked into this too. Part of what it doesn't really compare well is it only actually looks at the general fund, is what I was looking at too recently. And so that obviously, our general fund is a little, it's kind of split up, you know, with police and a bunch of other things. So it's hard to, I'm not saying that number's not important to look at, but I know for me, it's hard to compare to other townships with our general fund numbers, and nor does it take into account pensions in some of the other funds that we have. So anyway, I'm just looking at this. So if folks have comparisons with our overall pension health or ways to do that, I want to look into it. And to talk about progress, I think the unfunded number has gone up since I've been here, or not been here, but over the last few years it was, or no, I mean, it's been improved. It was 59% before, and now we're at 64%. So it's not the
And
progress
next year it could be 57.
Yeah.
I mean, it does bounce around.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mr. Zelasko.
I sincerely meant my opening statement. I do appreciate everybody and what we've done here today, and following up with what Greg said, I think this is progress. I think we're moving in the right direction, and
It may be slow, but we're trying.
And,
We'll try and do something different next year.
I appreciate everybody who stayed for the Q&A. Thank you very much. Now, with that said, this was a handout that Annie graciously gave us when we came. There was something, and this is not to try and stump anyone, but it alerted me right away, and it's something I'd like to just see if I can get some clarification. This figure right here, Annie, for the police department, that's the projected cost for 23.
Correct. I can't see it, but yeah.
Just a hair bigger.
Which is.
Yeah, with the court. It
Yeah.
does with the court.
And,
Yep.
and I don't dispute that number. Yeah, that number was $4,368,689. Now, you know and I know that the money's coming in is based on the millage that the police department presently has. These are general. I can go to the specifics, but these are just general. This is the millage that I believe the police department has that they use coming in, that was in the 5-year plan. And if we continue to use all of the 2 mills of the general, we're just breaking the bank. So we had the allocated 1.2 because of the Headley, the 2 operating millages of 1, and the 0.75 operating millage, which gave us a total of 5.95. If I take that and plug it in, and I'm looking at the millage, 1 mill being worth $686,439, according to our sheet right now. If I calculate this, I come out with $4,084,312. Now, the reason for doing this is, when I subtract that from the budgeted amount, I have a discrepancy, a large amount of money, and that is my concern.
The page, well, if you see it, this is the actual, so.
If we want to use, if you want to use the numbers that are off of this page here, the actual,
Yeah.
like the 0.9,
Yep,
okay,
those are the numbers.
I have a chart for that too.
Yep.
I still have a discrepancy. My question and my concern is, where will we draw that money from to balance the budget for the police department?
They're up in the police revenues, there's $98,000. You have to see the budget, and then we can come in tomorrow. Once you have the budget in hand, you'll be able to see it.
I'm sure I would.
In essence, there's
Yeah,
other monies
money's
coming
available,
into the
yeah.
department other than just the millage dollars.
Okay.
A little bit.
All right. So what you're saying is, we would also, this would either go in or be drawn out of.
Right, I mean, we have the expense of the court, but you don't have the in of the court, because this is a expenditure budget.
Okay.
So once you see it, you'll see it.
These numbers down here reflect the fund balance.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
the
we
monies
didn't-
will either we're gonna draw out of that, or these monies are gonna go in
That's
there or
correct.
come out of there.
That's correct.
But yet this fund balance has
Because
stayed the
this
same
is,
for
this
3
is the
years.
budget. We didn't do our adjustment. I just left the budget in, and then we made a zero budget. It was just a point that we budgeted for the last 2 years.
Okay, so
Zero
these
balance.
numbers will
Zero
change.
balance. They will change, absolutely.
Okay. So we do, as you're telling me, we do have monies to absorb that 4.3 million?
Yes.
To balance the budget?
Yes.
And this is all predicated on only 23 people?
Correct.
That doesn't include the officer that we want to bring back?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Greg?
Greg Karmazin. Again, I just repeat what I said earlier. I think this really was a great session. I think what you've done tonight is a big step forward, and I appreciate the finance director's comments and the manager's comments and the supervisor's comments.
And I do want to say.
No, I mean, sincerely,
Yeah,
sincerely,
and
this
I
is
want to
really-
say that we will try and improve it based on what we hear tonight.
This is exactly what, many of us in the community have been talking about for years, that we'd like to see this kind of information provided well in advance of the actual vote, so that we all, the whole community has a chance to look at it. Now, granted, this stuff can be very complicated, and I appreciate, the fact that you're willing to meet with people individually and answer questions, but I do think that there is a big difference and benefit of having these kinds of questions answered in a public forum, and so that people can actually, everyone can hear it, and not just the person that goes into the office. So anyways, again, appreciate what you're doing tonight. This is progress. So
Thanks, Greg.
getting on to questions, following up on Bob Zelasko's comment about the staffing at the police department, does this budget provide for 3 patrols, police car patrols on all the shifts?
Operation question. That's an operation question.
No, I know the answer to that. That'd be no.
Okay.
The answer would be no.
So obviously and others have talked about this issue of having the importance of having 3 patrols on duty on all the shifts. Is there any chance that you can, between now and the date when you actually have the vote on the budget, look for these additional revenues and come up with some type of plan so you can get those 3 cars on the road?
I will say, we are, Joe, myself, the chief, the chair of the police, and Derek and I are meeting to handle not only that problem, but just the financing of the police into the future. We don't want to do something for this year. We want to do something that's going to carry them, and we are working on something.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that'd be appreciated. And then on the unfunded liabilities on pension, I know there was actually some really good discussion on that tonight, and I think it would be helpful though to see how the required annual contribution has changed over time, looking at it over a long period of time, backwards but also forwards. Now, I think the finance director has pointed out that there's actuarial projections that show it going down, and that I think would help to alleviate some of the concerns that many people have had over over the years about this situation. In fact, I was looking back in my files the other day, and I found a newsletter when Doug Jones was supervisor here in 2001. Okay, and one of his top priorities for, I believe it was the 2001 year, was to get the unfunded liabilities down, and we were at 74% funded at that point, and his goal was to get it higher. Now, you know, that was 21, 22 years ago, and here we are, you know, at a 64%, and I know it's actually gone down lower than that. It's been down to 59.
Yep, it bounces around, yeah,
and I realize it
absolutely.
bounces down, but I think some of the comments that were made earlier about there is a cost of having an unfunded liability, and that's exactly why many communities have gone to a higher level of funding. They've reduced that liability, and then you know because I think many people are concerned that we're paying every year over a fairly long period of time. We've been paying more and more money out of our current revenues for past performance of township employees and activities. And, the question is, how sustainable is that long term? And if there's information that shows
I'll
that...
do a visual. When I do my presentation, I'll put it.
I think that would be really helpful because, when citizens are talking about this, it is complicated. And really, we do appreciate having the facts and having, information that we can use to make opinions. And I would just encourage you to do that. So that was.
We will have that for
Okay.
the when we do the budget.
Great.
Adopt the budget when we do that presentation.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Greg. No, you hit no. Is it? Hang on, Bill. Is there anybody else over here? Yeah, I think he does, and I thought we'd save the best till last. Gentlemen, do you have anything? Okay, Bill. Okay, Bill. Oh.
No, I gotta be home by 11.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell a story anyway.
I knew it.
I was most of my life I sold commercial property and liability insurance, and so I went to this continuing education seminar. It was up in Mount Clemens, and one of the guys at one of the bigger agencies there, and he was a tall guy, comes walking up to me at break, and he puts his arm on my shoulder and he says, "Do you know anybody who knows as many stories as you do?" And I says, "No." I says I read a book one time, and they said that Abraham Lincoln knew over 3,000 stories, and then it's the only one I can compare to, but yes, I guess somebody I can, he says, and they shot him.
I find that amusing. Thank you for that.
I want to make a suggestion here based on a remark that Yeager made here early in, Jameson. A lot of different businesses or entities have standardized accounting systems. I was talking about auto dealerships. For years and years, they used Reynolds, and they had a uniform system for it. And I'm thinking that what he's talking about with Microsoft might be something designed in part for municipalities. And looking into something like that from a variety of sources and providers to see what the costs and the benefits are would make it very easy to generate these reports, to give you formats that you can use for making decisions, can help you to project what your liabilities will be in the future given different interest rate assumptions, what have you. So I'm grateful we've had this opportunity. We're talking, we're sharing, we're listening. I think looking into some of these other programs might be a benefit.
Thank you.
Hey, Bill, I just want to let you know, Munitrix is still on the website.
It is. I looked for it and I didn't.
It's still there.
didn't
It's
find
under
it.
my page, Finance Director. It's still there.
Oh, I didn't wiggle the right way through the. Thank you.
And I chatted with Jameson, and we're going to get the ball rolling on that.
What?
On what you.
This thing we're talking about.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry. No, not on the shooting you. You looked worried there for a minute. Anyone else? And I can't see if anybody's back there. Kyle, are we? No, everybody's good? All right. with that, we will thank you all for coming. Thank you for your questions, and we'll get out and we'll try and do better next year.